show starts in 1 minute. Good evening, folks, and a hearty welcome to our drive-in theater. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family.
Like 9 out of 10 film stars, Raquel Welch uses Lux Beauty Soap.
Well, no, I like to be a woman and a man to be a man, you know.
We hope you'll make this a weekly visit. You love the tasty array of snacks we have to offer. Bring your friends. There are always wonderful new pictures to see. We hope you have a wonderful time.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Longhouse, the weekly show for the sensible centrist. Oh, hang on a moment here. The order is all wrong. I have to... There we go. I'm sorry, Hitman, you got demoted. And I hope you enjoyed that intro, because it's probably the last time that you're going to be able to see it live. I'm probably going to retire that and try to do something else for the new year. Maybe something a bit more return to form. We'll see. Because I'm starting to feel that the intro is a bit long. Luddic Path, how are you doing?
Hey, thank you, and Merry Christmas to everybody. I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the new intro. I heard you were planning some new metal-ish inspired Latino intro. But yeah, I think
I don't think it will be that.
New stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be something, and I have decided as well that I need an outro to play as well, because I saw this video. Hang on a moment. So this is a teacher who's playing like slime ASMR videos for the kindergartners before they go home, so that they can leave relaxed and ready to face family life. So we need something like that to round up the show.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about this. It's like, is this supposed to be censored? Am I supposed to be outraged or something?
Well, I'll start the new year by playing slime ASMR videos at the end of every stream, and we'll see how that goes.
Very modern.
Very modern. Next up, we have Liquid Swan. Why don't we just go around the sort of panel here and introduce ourselves?
All right, Merry Christmas, everyone. Good Yule to the Scandies.
Thank you. I'm going to post it again just in case, because since it's a Christmas special, we are keeping our doors and the lines open. And if anyone wants to come on and have a chat, we'll roll the dice on the comment section. Next up, we have Carl Herman Habermas. How are you doing?
Good to be back. Merry
Great.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I think last time I heard anything from you was must have been at the event, right?
Yeah, I got a bit busy after that, but hoping to get back to those swing of things after New Year.
Yeah. Dissident Nomad.
Hello, hi, and happy Yule. Merry Christmas to all. Good to be here. Horus, yeah, that's a shame about the intro. I think it's a really iconic intro, to be honest, in the DR pantheon.
You think so?
I think it's really good. It's just a good collection of images and sounds and culture and things. And
I'm not sure if I can recreate that because I'm thinking of something a bit shorter, a bit more, a bit more of a countdown.
It is a bit long. It is a bit long, yeah. But I mean, well, if you do, sort of phase it out, make sure you do a video of it. Do you know what I mean? To leave.
Oh, right. Yeah.
that we
to sort of enshrine it in the video.
Yeah.
Maybe I can do that. There's also the case that I don't know really how I'm getting away with it, but I'm playing the Spider Bait song at the end there, or well, it's their version of Black Betty, I think. And maybe I'm just barely within my copyright limits, but that's always the issue with this stuff, is that you're skirting a lot of corporate law, trying not to get sort of nuked by the Eye of Sauron, that is YouTube copyright. Anyway, moving on. Hitman, welcome back.
Oh, thank you, Amora.
Well, I say welcome back. You have been on this show before, right?
Yes, I came on in March to discuss. I think it was like loneliness and atomized.
Yes, you were on the loneliness stream, right?
Yes, and then I've had you on my channel a couple of times. Once to discuss the Hovermole, and again more recently to discuss modern middle class sensibilities and such. So
yeah, I really enjoyed that stream.
It was very good, and thank you for having me on. Wonderful to talk to all these lovely people. And I have to say, with this idea of a new intro, perhaps you could do what AA does, and that every season just like change it a little bit and like rehash some of it for like the mean value. Maybe even in this.
See, the problem is I don't have like a bard on call.
Well, I was about to say, get Chris Guard.
Yeah, maybe I'll talk to Chris Guard. Maybe he can churn something out for the Longhouse as well. Anyway, moving on. Jay Green River, friend of the channel.
Hello, and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Am I supposed to introduce myself here or what? Yeah, okay. Well, I'm Jay Green River. I come from the Beowulf Foundation. I've been on a couple of streams. I've talked about Danish politics and a little bit about Viking history.
True. That's something we need to probably continue with in the next year. They're nice streams for me to make because I can basically just wind up Leo and then he talks for like 4 hours.
Yeah, that would be excellent. I've looked a lot into trading, etc. If you want a subject on that rather than the rating, right? That's what.
Oh yeah, that would be nice. Yeah. So I don't really have a strict sort of schedule or anything for the stream, as it was with the UO Christmas stream. There's this first half hour where people are sort of just getting to know each other. Right? And I have one. Well, it's not even an entire news article because I think it's paywalled, that I wanted to bring out, maybe to start the festivities that Leo sent me earlier this week. And if we want to, we can also have a look back, because we did that last year. We did like a scroll through of every episode we did this year, and we can talk about which one was our favorites. How do you think about that, Buddy Path?
Yeah, sure. It sounds like a good starting place. I mean, I remember last time we probably got like 1/4 in or something, and we just derailed. But that's kind of the point. At least.
Well, that's the point.
Conversation starter, right? Yeah.
It's just background content. All right, so we'll start with the quarter of a news article that Leo sent me this week, and he usually does that whenever Norway does something stupid. And so this is a Swedish article, because the only Norwegian articles I could find on this were even more paywalled. But that is, in the new translations of the Norwegian Bible, the word quote unquote Jews will be replaced. And now what this means is that the word Jews would usually be changed with, say, maybe Jewish leaders, or the crowd, as it says further down here, will explicitly say, is it Pharisees? Or am I mixing with something else here?
Israelites might be the more correct term on this.
Maybe it's Israelites, yeah. So they want to remove sort of the connotation that comes from just saying the word Jews.
Is this woke?
As Winkle says, maybe we should call them the tribe.
I mean, I'm confused. Like, is this woke or is this anti-woke?
I'm not trying to figure that out myself. Yes.
Who's Jewing who?
Sorry, Liquid, you were saying something.
Oh, I was saying they will not replace us. Is that what's kind of going on here?
Well, maybe. As you're saying, Ludwig, it's hard to know where this is coming from. Like, is this pro-Israel or anti-Israel.
Who's Jewing who?
Yeah, who's Jewing who exactly? So that's all the news we have for this week. I'm sure there's other things that happen in the news, but I'm in a Christmas spirit, so I don't really care right now. Let's see here. Okay, so we're gonna have a look at our live streams. I just need to bring up my my screen here again and zoom in a little bit. And if I open this in a tab like this, hang on a moment. I'm getting a message on Twitter. Let me just follow up and see that I'm not mixing anything.
That's probably me.
Oh, that's you. What's this? This is an archive.
Yeah, if you have a paywalled article, just put the link in there and then it will...
Oh, and it'll remember sort of the original version.
Yeah, I don't know how it actually works, but it's... yeah, I'll put it in the chat as well. It's pretty useful, yeah, because it works. I don't know how it works, but yeah, you can get access to any Financial Times, whatever it is, New York Times article.
All right, so here is the backlog. And we started off the year, I'd say, quite strong, honestly. And I'm kind of upset that I've had a lot to do and like after May things got very busy and it hasn't really slowed down, but it's looking better for next year. Because I was hoping that I'd get more time to do the kinds of streams that we did with the Machiavellians, where I would be able to basically just talk about a book for a while, or do a book review, and I'd like to do more of that. Now, I know like that's probably very popular to do, but it's very nice as a way of sort of just making me read more books and keeping me sort of on the treadmill of that. So hopefully in 2024 I'll be able to do more of that.
Well, I remember what.
Yeah, you got to keep fresh.
Sorry, what?
He said you got to keep fresh, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, on the stuff of books, I think like in like 2020, it seems like everything was just about book reviews, right? But it seems like things have just floated away from that. I'm talking about the general DR sphere.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's really like the live stream stuff, kind of like we're doing now. That seems to be more of the common format, and people aren't as interested in the theory selling.
It's Twitter Spaces. That's what happened.
Indeed. Well, I will say I do think those are a good pair of streams. Those Machiavellians. It's good to always come back to the core thoughts of our spheres, especially Burnham and all those thinkers.
Yeah, I agree. The fundamentals. Yeah.
Now, after that, we had which is something we also talked a bit about, which is something we tried to do this year. Is it's going to sound weird, but last year we had quite a bit of focus on having guests on or doing like these big deep dives, like we did like 4-hour streams, etc. But we wanted to shorten it down, keep it more focused, and sort of narrow in. Maybe it's just me and Ludwig talking about something for an hour and a half that sort of we know about or that we've been researching. In a sense, it's not necessarily trying to copy what someone like Scrump and Evelyn is doing, but it's a very efficient format. So being able to have those kinds of episodes is nice when you have to do an episode every week. So I think Depopulation Bomb was one of the first of that caliber. It was just me and Ludwig talking about, something that we found interesting, that we did some research on. Other than that, I don't think there's anything noteworthy about this specific episode. All right, moving on.
I thought it was a fun one to discuss, at least. If we're talking
just
episode for episode. I mean, it's a topic that keeps coming back up again. Like it's one of the big ones that people are trying to discuss. We can't really seem to agree or disagree on. where I mean, you could be like right for the wrong reasons or wrong for the right reasons on this population stuff. I mean, it came up on UO as well, and I don't think there's we really come to an agreement on what exactly we're supposed to do, and what's the good and the bad of where this is going. But it's clearly a reality. It doesn't seem to be reversing this birth rate collapse that you're seeing all around the world. So still a very I mean, I think that's kind of an interesting angle when we're looking at these episodes, if like how interesting these topics are, looking at it like, okay, we're 1 year they're 1 year in the rear view mirror, and then
right.
Okay, is this still interesting, or is it have you changed your mind on it or something?
Yeah, no, I'd say that this episode is just as relevant today as it was when it was aired, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a continuing problem.
Yeah. And then we have Program to Kill, which is it that the second appearance of Witticism TV on our channel?
I don't remember. What was the first one? If this was not the first one,
Dave Ramsey, I think, or well, more broadly, the Boomer episode. Yeah,
of course, that was the Boomer episode. So we brought him back for this one because he's really kind of into this. I don't even remember the guy's name. I need to Google Dave McGowan or something. Let's see here. To Kill. It's it's David McGowan. I remember that one correctly. And this is something that, of course, it's that I've been quite interested in. And to be honest, like in the rearview mirror, I've sort of moved away from it. I had a small rant in the previous episode about like the sort of conspiratard, patriotard culture that's developed in the US. And I mean, like that seems to, at least to me, to be the dominant kind of like right-wing populist culture on a large scale now that is with Trump and with all this stuff that's moving forward. And it's honestly something that I'm trying to move away from a little bit. It's not criticism towards Witticism TV or something. I still watch his channel and enjoy his stuff, but it's just like this kind of mindset.
Yeah, but you had a rant about it the other episode when it's sort of like it's entering mainstream politics as a selling point.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's interesting for that particular reason that, I think, Vivek Ramaswamy, he's like 2 steps away from bringing out this book and talking about like these child abduction
on stage at the
Republican debate. On stage, basically. So this is going into the mainstream now. And like, I'm feeling like a lot of it is just, it's not very productive, to be honest. It's like this kind of X-Filesification of politics, where you're turning this into this kind of soap opera entertainment product, where you're creating like you do like that meme with the guy, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and he's pointing at the board, and you have like the tax with the
cork board with the lines.
And you've had 100 cups of coffee or something. It's you're turning politics into that, really. And so yeah, that's just my view on it now. That I'm just trying to move away from it and be a little bit more sober in my analysis, and not just immediately jump on like the sort of satanic pedophile cults every time something happens. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on it. I don't know if anybody else has some has any takes.
Well, I talked with this at Shieldings with the guys. So I was like, well, if people are going on about pedophile cults and stuff, it's like, well, it's not really. It doesn't seem that serious. It almost seems like too conspiratorial. Like it's outside of our focus, really, for what we want to do or what we want to deal with. And so yeah, I was talking about this last summer. But yeah, I agree.
Because
it's one of those. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just X-Filesification. Like I guess the most recent pop culture phenomenon is like True Detective, the first season with Matthew McConaughey and what was his name, Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson, I think.
Woody Harrelson, yeah. I thought like Woody. I was thinking about the Toy Story or something. But no, it's like that's like the plot of that show as well, right? Like every political incident or something, it just leads back to satanic pedophile cults every single time. And it's a very sort of compelling, at least for a certain type of person, this is like a very compelling plot line. But it doesn't mean it's like it's true every time, but you can explain every single issue with secret like pedophile society. So, but again, this is not
sort of the thing. It's you're wrapping, it's so unnecessary to wrap this up in all like a one big conspiracy when you can just say that Hollywood producers diddle kids, and we've known that for years and years, right?
Yeah, or just generally that, you know, these people have an agenda that's opposed to your agenda, and
Yeah,
there's
or
no,
something like
no
that.
reason
Yeah.
to try to tie every single person you don't like to Epstein or something. I just think it's unnecessary. It seems to just take up way too much space and too much energy in the on the far right currently. So I'd like to see people move away from it, but I don't see it happening. It's just going to intensify. I don't know what the climax is going to be. Like, at what point do people get tired of this stuff, or they move on to something else? And if they do,
Well, that's
what's the
interesting
next
because
thing?
you sort of get this ratchet effect. Like, what do you do when you reach sort of the cliff's edge on this? Do you step away, right?
I'm thinking about like Reen Girard, the philosopher, and like the idea of the crucifixion. I don't remember exactly if anybody has like that general concept. Like, somebody has to be crucified. You know, they have to find the satanic pedophile at some point. You know, like
that's him, the satanic pedophile.
That's the CEO of satanic pedophilia or something. Get him, you know, and he has to be like executed on TV or something.
One
and when that
guy.
happens, like they can leave it dead. You know, we're done with that now. We've put the blame on
the woke.
the black sheep.
Then the woke gets put back, right?
Yes.
Well, I had a friend that believed in all the Q shit, and I talked to him. I was like, this is probably bullshit, man. And he was going on for a year. He's super serious, had all these groups and friends and stuff, that other friends that he meet. And then we reached this sort of apotheosis of it being bullshit, and he still kind of believes it. I mean, he's not going to be converted out of it. I don't know what can be done on that regard. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe on a live witch burning or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it has to, right? At some point, we just agree that okay, these are the guilty people, and now we've killed them. So you got to move on to something else. We completed the story arc. You know, you have to start a new show. Yeah.
All right, next up, we have the first appearance, I believe, of Dissident Nomad. Is that correct? This is when we started to... Luddic Path had stepped in as the editor at this point for Praxarchy, which meant that we could basically content farm a couple of people from that site over onto our show to get some interesting conversations going.
Yeah, and that was my stream debut... anywhere actually. So I still remember. I've got to go back and listen to that actually, but I can't remember it in detail, but it did seem to go very well, the flow. And
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I thought we covered a lot, and the whole series really. We did the 3 petrodollar articles, so that was big thanks to Luddic for really kind of putting that together and masterminding it. But it's for me, it's been onwards and upwards ever since. So I kind of really owe both of you guys a big debt of gratitude, I think. But that was try and
well, it's our pleasure, Nomad, to have you on. It was it's been great every time.
Yeah, I think it's progressively got better and better. Actually, I re-listened to the Nixon and Reagan ones. I will do that later, but these 2 chaps are very good hosts. They may be modest and they may downplay their abilities, but they are very good, very measured. And I always appreciate that you read my work, at least skim read it beforehand, because that makes a big difference. But and actually, sorry, just to sign off, a lot of people have, I don't know if you guys have seen, but some people, Gaddafi is kind of slowly dripped back into the news cycle,
like re-entered,
news cycle, but there's a little bit more coming out about this. I can't remember who, but I think even some normicons have picked up. So why was this guy removed? Why was the 3rd biggest country in Africa, destroyed and leveled? And how's the migrant crisis sort of developed? But we were ahead of the curve. So there you go.
Very nice. We'll skip the part 2 there, and then we have the Longhouse explores Sumer culture, which was a, so to speak, return to form where Burkal and Leo Borealis joined us to basically. I mean, it's a bit of a. I'm not going to call it a low effort episode, because this is the episode where I did a lot of research to try to figure out sort of the origins of all the Zoomer slang, and it turned out that it's mostly all gay and African American culture. So there was some research involved in it, but it's a very it was a very sort of easy target, right? But I don't think the state of Zoomers or the plight of Zoomers, so to speak, has gotten any better at all. It seems to just be getting more confusing.
And no,
yeah. Hitman, go first.
Thank you. I remember watching that, and that was actually quite an amusing stream. You doing that deep dive, and like AA does, his segments on Twitter, like for Zoomers, blah de blah, blah de blah, and they're doing all these like absurd, like incorrect analyses because just taking advantage of their ignorance, and it's funny, but it's also tragic knowing that this sort of young generation is so clueless.
I think what has come out from that, because we were a bit puzzled by sort of the Zoomers appearing. Ludwigpath and I have talked about this, and we have discussed this on stream, later, our revelation of the fact that the Zoomers aren't necessarily more based or right-wing. It's literally that they just don't care. That makes them look that way, right? Like very a complete irreverence of anything.
In retrospect, we did a lot of good analysis, but I think it could have been simplified in many ways. It was a really fun stream, and I think a lot of people watched it and sort of rewatched it, even in like the broader sphere, and you can see it on the
let me check the because it has higher view count. Let me just real quick check the.
It was very funny from memory, that stream. I laughed a lot, and I did rewatch that one actually. So,
and in retrospect, knowing a little bit more, I can just sort of sum it up like Zoomer, 80% of these sort of Zoomer references and the lingo, it's like there's this rapper that's called Da Baby that I've listened a little bit to, and I realized that like 80% of it's from him, actually. Like this sort of all like no cap, bussin', fussin', all this kind of stuff, the kind of the humor that they have and stuff, it's really just kind of, it's a little bit like Eminem was, I think, for us. I mean, he's not that big, but it's like it's him and the rappers.
Eminem was only aspirational black, Ludwig.
yeah. Well, but he was still white. But so it's really like this kind of like
to that,
the kind of like black humor in 2020 plus Minecraft and Roblox and like what do you call it, Fortnite, and that is kind of their whole culture. That's kind of what it is. That's like 99% of everything that they're going to reference. It sounds weird if you haven't seen the video games or stuff, but if you've actually played the same game, it's kind of obvious. Actually, you just need to consume the same stuff they're doing. And
I mean, that means weird. The humor is incredibly shallow because it basically just boils down to references to product, right?
Yeah, it is actually a lot more shallow. I thought it was a lot more creative, but that's usually I go through this process all the time. You listen to some artist or some person who's making jokes, and I think it's their jokes, and then I just consume the same content as them, and you realize that they're just copying. Basically, it's just like blatant copying almost all the time, and it's this kind of the same with Zoomers. So it was almost a little bit anticlimactic. I'd hoped they'd been a little bit more creative. There's been some, what do you call it? Osmosis or like a biogenesis of some spontaneous culture there, but it's really just kind of copying. Like this is the hip hop humor that's there currently. That's what they think is funny.
Is it just that sort of the cultural pipeline is just it's not even hidden anymore? Is that why it seems so strange to us?
Well, it's we're just not plugged into the same thing. We're not on TikTok and we're not listening to the same rappers and stuff. But when you're doing that, it's like, okay, they're just like reciting rap lyrics. That's what they're doing. Like 90% of the jokes is just reciting stuff that's already just in somebody else's lyrics and just using it in weird situations. So it's a lot more boring than I thought, honestly.
Sort of masturbatory instead of creative.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and say that millennials have anything better to provide. I think we probably also just reference a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I think the Distributist, put out a Substack, right, and we published it on Praxarchy as well. That's really the speech that he did on millennials, and I think he's very much on point. He said that the millennials have like the reverse Midas touch, and so it's like everything like millennials try to do, everything they touch just turns to shit. Like you talked about Sam Bankman-Fried and a lot of these sort of millennial ventures, and I mean it's kind of true and it's kind of scary at the same time. I mean, there's a lot of problems we don't have that the Zoomers have, but still, there's no shortage of millennial failure across the board.
True.
No, and obviously we talked about this idea that Zoomers are like nihilistic. Well, the millennials may not be as nihilistic, but what they care about is still like pretty like subversive. Like, for example, I came across this Twitter account the other day with the literal name of Low Poly Depression, and it's just this millennial guy, and his whole Twitter account is him just like painfully being nostalgic for like 90s and early 2000s video game culture, and it's just him showing these old clips and like replaying these old games and showing like these old like you know those old video game like mags you would get with like demos and stuff. It's just all of that culture just constantly rehashed on his Twitter accounts, and it was fucking depressing to look through. To be honest, all this guy's life was.
I almost want to see it now. Do you have the, what do you call it, low poly
depression? That's what it was called.
Low poly depression. Is this on YouTube?
No, this is Twitter.
Oh God, I got to be careful about searching for things on Twitter. One moment.
Yeah, no more volcano moments.
Low
While you're
poly
searching for that, I
depression.
might have a contrary
I found them.
position on this.
All right,
I'll
let's hear it,
question.
Herman.
Well, I might have a special insight considering I am one, but I'd reference what Dutton's brought up in the past, a piece by a think tank called UK Onward called The Kids Aren't All Right. It's some Tory thing trying to understand the position of the youth. And they go on to show that, well, the majority of Zoomers are irreverent. There's no real harmonious culture, so it's just a reproduction of what they've seen over and over again, as we pointed out. But there is a segment, about a third, which out of nowhere compared to all previous generations will say something like, well, just put the army in them, or we need a strong man in order to save the situation that is happening in the nation today, something like that. So I think there is, and you could just attribute it to, well, they don't know anything, so there's no reason why they wouldn't think this. It just hasn't been instilled in them. But I think there is a significant unseen portion. Maybe it's the anons on Twitter that you can't really identify their age. But I would say that I've personally and anecdotally seen evidence to the contrary. And I mean, I think most of the people here attended the WITAN, and I think the demographics of who was there was a testament to that. But that would just be my opinion anyway.
All right, so here we got low poly depression.
Oh, you found it? Yeah, it's depressing.
I follow them actually. I kind of found it interesting. I might unfollow later when the depression sets in, but
so it's kind of like
oh, look at that.
Well,
there's shortcuts there for like Max Payne and the Half-Life and this.
And then he's hitting
that's
like
great. Jay
low poly. Is this Kojima time? It's that it's the mascot or something for his studio. This is old like Xbox E3 1995. So it's a lot of this like early 2000s, late 90s. What's this? Okay. I gotta be honest, I am not getting whatever this guy's putting down. Like, I understand what he's posting, but I'm not really understanding what you're supposed to be feeling. Like, I'm not getting it.
Well, I actually looked it up, and apparently his name, Low Poly Depression's been coined on like Urban Dictionary or something, and it just basically means someone who is like depressingly nostalgic for like the lost like 90s or early 2000s culture.
So it's that simple, really.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Because I thought that was too simple to just be it, but I guess that's like it's people who are nostalgic for something they never experienced or something.
And no, he did experience it, and I'm just thinking,
oh, he did it.
Yeah, and I'm just like, well, just move on with your life.
Yeah. All right.
But why doesn't he get into like competitive Age of Empires too?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's something you could do.
Yeah.
I guess there's still StarCraft being played.
Yep.
Then we have this. Is this the first time you appeared, Liquid Swan? The Dissident.
Oh yeah, actually, you were you guys were the first ones to kind of put me on the screen, essentially.
Just like
after
with
that,
Nomad, we're like the talent scouts at this point.
Yeah. Well, after you, I went on Jay Burden, and then I went on AA stream with, I think, with you.
That's the pipeline, right?
Yeah, and then I went to Shielding. So
I think you had that comment at some point, Ludwig. You did. It's like one of those Hollywood sort of agents, like, you're gonna be great, kid. You're gonna start on the Longhouse, and then you go on Jay Burden, then it's Alex Kashuta, and then it's on the big leagues. So I'm talking UO, baby, right?
Millennial is like the final. It's the final destination if you really made it, you know.
Yeah, I kind of wrote that Exodus article for up until Shieldings, basically, because I guess it garnered some interest there, and yeah, it was interesting because when I went there, a lot of the Americans were like adamantly against the idea, like completely. So I had to modify it a bit to be more. Well, you know, we're just, you know, one of the main ideas of it is to like have a backup plan, in case like, you know, the entire board gets wiped out. So I kind of had to like adjust it just so that they weren't like trying to burn me at the stake while I was on stage.
Right. That's pretty ballsy, actually. I mean, it's because they're patriotic and they don't want to leave the U.S. or something, or
well, the comment I got was like the U.S. is so big and like we're so like geographically diverse that you could kind of hide out there, and no one's gonna get you. So yeah, that was basically which you know, I didn't really think of that too much before. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was, and it certainly was something that we hadn't encountered before, really. So a lot of people got really mad in the comments, I remember.
I think really, like, from a Canadian perspective, that's like maybe the only way that could even have been like devised, because when you're here, it's so messed up. Like the
problem is also that, you know, from the point of view of Ludwig and I mean, we're not that far along as you guys seem to be, right?
I think we're so far along.
It just seems very, very strange to us that it would get that bad.
We're so deep in the rabbit hole that like we're pulling Chinese guys up.
Right. Moving on, we had Dissident Speech with you gotta help me here, Ludwig. His name is something Law, Reactionary Reading Law, I think. Whom we met at the event last year, the Witten. Did he go this year as well? I think he did.
Yeah, I talked to him there. So
you meet so many people, it's hard to remember. Which was,
I mean, there was a lot of recurring guests on the Witten. Actually, that was
yes.
One of the things that I feel like you met almost all of the same people came back. I think from the last time.
I missed like one or two guys who didn't come. The farmer guy came again this year, which was nice because he's a very funny guy. But there was one or two people that I was like, I remember having, you know, good talks with you last year that didn't show up. But this was Reactionary Reading Law, who really went into detail, sort of the legal details about how to act in speech or how to talk. I mean, of course, being a lawyer, it's a lot of people saw him as a bit of a killjoy, but I think it's an interesting opinion, sort of perspective to have on it, especially considering how many laws are geared towards being vague enough to basically blame you for anything. Like you make one wrong step and you can, you know, in public speaking, and you can basically just get jailed in a lot of countries.
Yeah, I mean, the optics stuff is really important. And I mean, our side of this, you know, our slice of the general right wing is pretty much all on board with that now. You know, I don't think there's a lot of discussions around needing to have good optics, but it was something that they discussed on UO you know, a couple of days ago, where they were talking about like some other dissident stream. I think that was like the Kill stream or something with Ethan Ralph and Mr. Medicare, that kind of stuff. And like you can compare the stuff that we're doing with what they're doing, essentially. And that's like the difference between people who don't give a shit about laws and optics and stuff, where they're just like live streaming themselves running around with a little sound box that's screaming the N-word or something, or they're like, doxing each other about their sex lives or stuff like that. I mean, it's
not very productive.
kind of a non-starter, yeah. And I mean, there was some episodes, not in this year's Written, but like last year, where with some stuff that went a little bit overboard with one of the, I don't know, what do you call the events or the shows or something. So he was trying to sort of just talk about that and how it needs to be reined in, essentially. And he's right.
Has he also written books, or am I confusing him with someone else?
He has a Substack.
I'm confusing I'm confusing him with someone else, I think, who has written like a very sort of I want to say Arthurian style book. Who was
that was King Emperor Penguin, I think that's
that's him. Yeah.
About. But that's something completely different. He's not been on the show. Yeah.
No. Next up, we have Modern Loneliness, which is the first appearance of Hitman, right?
Yes, it was.
Did you write something about loneliness somewhere, or how did we end up getting you on? I don't remember.
I think you just put it out there. Does anybody want to come on and discuss this idea? We've been looking at Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam and other similar articles, and
exactly, yes,
yeah. Yeah, that was a great discussion, and I mostly leaned a bit on people like Juvenel and others regarding atomization, because it's a sad modern trend, and it really should be reversed at all costs. So.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, where are we 1 year, 1 year ahead, then, loneliness has not stopped. I think people are just as lonely as ever, really. There's no reversing this trend at all. At least that's what it seems to me.
Yeah, and you have your own YouTube channel as well, Hitman, that people who are listening here should go and check out, because you streamed with John D a lot. You've streamed with Apostolic Majesty, with me a couple of times. Furious Pertinax as well. You have a lot of history and war, I think.
Yes, I've had a Furious on a few times, had D on a few times, and had a lot of different people on. So war, history, art, even Orientalism, which is another sort of interest of mine, especially present given the current events in the Middle East. So
right. Then we have Irrational Rationalism, which was an article written by you, Carl Herman Habermas. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was the first article I ever wrote for Praxarchy, or I think in the Sphere at all. You scouted me the same way. I think you gave me the same speech you gave Liquid Swan about this will be I'll get him through the Longhouse and then it will develop on from there. But I think it was an attempt because at the time, I think I was one of the last holdouts for pure Hoppianism. And I tried to reconcile it with where the dissident right had gone, moving away from libertarianism. And in the end, I don't think I was successful. But I think it's to do with elite theory. I think is more valid. Cyclical history, I think, has better explanatory power. But going back to what we were saying before about the Q-tards, I think there is a compulsion to have this one overarching thing that explains everything, and the simpler, the more good versus evil narrative it is, the more effective it is, particularly when propagandizing en masse. So
that's probably true. Yes,
there may be lessons to be learned there, but I'm fairly fond of it. It's the first thing I ever did.
Next up, we have actually I have a hard sort of time with this next episode because I really enjoyed the subject matter, but I feel like when listening back to it, it's one of the few streams I've listened back to, I feel like I've failed in communicating my ideas here. But I do feel like there's something in that discussion and stuff I talked about that is unexplored using sort of our lenses.
I thought that was a really good one, Walrus. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think you guys covered a lot of good ground, made a lot of valid points about just how the digital space has just grown and grown, and the difference between Web 1.0, 2.0, and where we are now. It wasn't easy subject material, but I remember that one. That was around about May or April, May, wasn't it, or something?
It seems like I can't see it here from the. I had to open it, and then it's going to start playing. So it says 8 months ago.
I thought it was pretty good. Like, it's not for the Zoomers, but I mean, for us older guys, I think it was really interesting to look back on how things progressed over time.
For anyone who remembers, interacting with a computer, I think you'll enjoy that. That show. But I think it's also, as I said, I think I have some thoughts in there about how computing affects decision making in the what AA calls the octopus is something that is undervalued, honestly.
Yeah, definitely extreme.
Yeah, but I do see what you mean there. I thought it was an interesting episode. It was a good talk, but I do also think that I probably misunderstood where you were going with some of the points. So when I've listened back,
that's sort of why I'm saying that it irritates me, because I feel like I failed in communicating my thoughts on it more than the subject matter being wrong or I'm being off the mark, right? All right. So then we have Green River fell out. I think maybe he had to leave, or when you have this many people on, StreamYards become really unstable. So then we had a talk with Green River, who was here before, about his work with Beowulf. It was kind of nice. It's nice to get to know sort of what's going on, what we're actually sort of doing in order to help each other across state lines, so to speak, and to try to build a community, not just in the vague people go on each other's live streams and follow each other on Twitter way, but actually being able to support each other. That's nice. Following that, we had to do some shilling. So I busted out the flames and the Wojaks and the Sanna Marin graphic because we were going back to Finland with Burkhall. Actually, that seems here. Yeah, that was Liquid Swan, Burkhall, and Karl Herben Habermas talking about what the status of Finland was. I can't quite recall what had happened, but considering what's been going on in Finland now, I mean, more and more people are sort of blaming the woes, especially in economics, in Finland, on Sanna Marin's government, and a lot of stuff they did that is going to, have lasting damage.
I think she was too busy like passing and raving to do anything serious. And I'd always enjoy these streams you do where you check back in on different Scandinavian countries, because not being from there, it sort of gets a little bit ignored on other shows like UO. So it's always nice to check in and see what's going on in other parts.
It's one of our strengths, right? Being Nordics, all of us, it's something that we can do that no one else can, right? Is going straight to the source and updating you guys.
I agree, and I think we should. I mean, there's a lot of potential there as well. There's not that many people doing it, and we should be doing even better, honestly, on some of these things. It's just a little bit with the shortness of time. But I think especially with like a lot of these discussions, sort of on UO that's going on between the UK and the Americas fair, there's a lot of things that, models that they use that don't really map onto the Scandi countries as well, I feel. And there's something that is to be learned there, because we're sort of in the same, this transatlantic political sphere, these political alliances, but a lot of the logic for like the typical angles that they will go to in terms of how you analyze where policy comes from and who's pushing for it and who's not pushing for it. It's not always the same in Scandinavia, I feel like, say like with the J, like the J question and these types of things. Like it's the J population in Scandinavia, it's like diminishingly small. It's almost non-existent. So it's very difficult. I mean, you're seeing a lot of the same policies that are being pushed through, and you can walk down, these hierarchies of the people who are pushing for it. It's actually very hard to find any like J involvement on any level. So you have to look at kind of other explanations and models for how to understand that kind of stuff, right? It a lot of this kind of J stuff, it doesn't really apply
you
the
can't
same
just
way.
point to one source.
No, but that's kind of how I feel with, it just gets taken for granted with a lot of the analysis that's being done on this kind of UK, US discussions.
True, yeah. So, moving on, we had a review of Surviving the Future by David Fleming, alongside Liquid Swan, I see. And this was one of the quite random sort of books I picked up this year. And I was absolutely fascinated by it, mostly because it's discussing a lot of the things that we're discussing just from a completely different point of view. So if you haven't watched this, I'd go give that a look and watch me try to confusedly explain what this guy was on about for an hour and a half. And we have the Chimpanzee Politics with Nathan C.J. Hood. Nathan, that was his first appearance on our show. And Nathan and I have sort of sporadically stayed in contact. I sourced him for parts of my speech at the Witten, and I helped him a lot with his Dark Souls stuff, to the point where we decided to make streams out of them, which we did on this channel a couple of weeks ago. So check that out as well if you want to. But I really enjoyed the Chimpanzee Politics. Sorry.
I also want to show for Nathan C.J. Hood. He wrote a Praxarchy exclusive recently.
He's very good.
Archetype. So his articles are always a treat.
Yeah, they're very good.
You should go and check that out if you have the time. I mean, I enjoyed the episode. I just think that the monkeys are funny. I mean, that's just kind of a hook that I have for these things.
Right.
But it has nothing to do with like the deeper points. But I always just go back to it just to remember, okay, monkeys are funny. But there are a lot of points in looking at this sort of Francis de Waal evolutionary psychology stuff and how that.
Yeah, and this was like we had like a highlight on Newt Gingrich and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very interesting, some sort of esoteric monkey knowledge that I think a lot of people overlook.
I think Nathan's great because he's got a bit of a unique, different angle to most other people. And he's got a niche. He discusses sort of myth and heroism and the sort of meaning and purpose of stories, which is very nice. And I always enjoy watching it. It's a treat.
Yeah, you should definitely, if you haven't, check out Nathan C.J. Hood here on YouTube. He has a lot of good stuff, and also on Praxarchy you can find him. And then we had an episode where we talked about birth rates, etc., with Professor Edward Dutton, which was nice, and we got to learn a bit more about him as well off stream, in terms of he told us a bit about how it's like living in Finland, so that was fun. I'll say that he is an absolute sort of freight train. once he gets going, it's hard to get a word in. Yeah,
it just felt like one long monologue, and I couldn't keep up. So I don't know how you guys. And I was rewinding.
I told Luddigpath after that I remember sending him a message saying that I had never been this exhausted after a stream as I was after doing Dutton.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is that we had some things prepared, and I had some questions, some things that I wanted to get into. I mean, it's a great show. He's a great character. He brought his audience over, so there was some cross-pollination there. It's always entertaining to have him on, but like the problem is that it was kind of just like a machine gunning his kind of talking points and stuff that's related to his books and stuff, and it was very hard to kind of just try to inch in some other ideas or try to navigate onto some of the things that we wanted to talk about on that thing. I mean, yeah, that's just what I remember, is that I was trying to move it in a certain direction, but it was just kind of impossible. It just went, like you said, like a freight train in one direction for that. So, but an interesting experience, I think.
Oh yes, very good. And then we had what we called the Longhouse Retrospective on Amazing Atheist, which was the return of witticism. and this is sort of mirroring a thing we did with Jay Burden last year on Movie Bob, just with, Amazing Atheist, albeit taking it a bit more in the direction of talking about what the hell happened with sort of Atheism Plus and where are these people now. I remember this stream being very funny.
In retrospect, I thought, this, what was the Twitter channel, this kind of like low poly depression thing, where, you look at these like old video games like Crash Bandicoot and stuff like that and try to, revisit that stuff as a kind of nostalgia. I mean, for me, The Amazing Atheist is like Crash Bandicoot almost, because I've been watching his stuff for so long. And he's just persisted throughout, like from 2008 almost. And like, I had the impression going in that the witticism was kind of the same mind on that he had also been watching him since 2008, but he had picked him up a little bit later. So he had a different perspective on The Amazing Atheist that kind of tied a little bit more into his worldview in general. But of course, it's entertaining content. Nonetheless,
yes.
If you've seen it before, if you've never seen it before, it's kind of, it is this kind of like internet exclusive stuff that you can just look at and like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah, lol cows and all that.
Yes, exactly.
I've never particularly had a positive impression of The Amazing Atheist, because my first ever introduction to him was a Razor Fist rant called something like Annihilating an Amazing Atheist, which I will give it to Razor Fist. That was a good, funny rant. But yeah, and then when I've seen other clips of him, he always just, as Walrus, you've said, he always just seemed like a bit of a lol cow.
There's a lot of those, people who, I don't know, they didn't really survive Gamergate, right? They came through on the other side, but something had changed, and some of them quite literally changed gender as well. So
true and doubt. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's going to sound like it's kind of, it's like I'm trying to make some kind of dunk here, but there seems to be a theme, especially with these atheist type creators here, that they talk a lot about evolution, but they somehow fail to evolve their own content. It just seems to be true for almost all of them. Like they coming up with these kind of atheist talking points, and a society would be so much better if like everybody stopped being religious, blah blah blah, and then X, Y, and Z happens, and they don't change their views. They just have the same unoriginal opinions that are becoming just kind of outdated. Like it seemed plausible in like 2005, and now it's just kind of ridiculous that you would still think that and still like point to the church as like this is like the main culprit of what's wrong with society or something. I mean, I checked in on like Sam Harris recently, and we've done streams on him previously. He's another guy that's like very intellectual and has an education and is like very high up in these kind of American elite circles. But he also has just not evolved any opinions that he has like since 2008. Even like the Israel stuff, that he's just had the same opinion that like Hamas is basically like these kind of inhuman Death Eater people, and Israel is basically good. Like his talking point is that if Israel wanted to eradicate Gaza, they could have done so, and because they haven't done so, then that means they're actually really good people and they know how to use power and stuff. But I mean, what's happened now? They've just basically massacred tens of thousands of people. They're just taking weapons from the U.S. hand over fist just to break every like human rights convention that exists, and that hasn't changed his opinion one bit. He still sees like Israel as like this benevolent.
That's strange, isn't it? Yeah.
Hold on though.
Israel is Harry Potter, okay?
No, but on The Amazing Atheist, I think there is an evolution to it in their content, and you pointed out that a lot of them tune out. I mean, I think I said to one of you in a private DM one time that Postal 2 is basically The Amazing Atheist at apogee. I mean, if rationalization comes after sentiment, that sphere seemed to always be interested in whatever indulge their own vices. And atheism is, in a way, it's carte blanche to do whatever you want because everything's consent-based and so on and so forth. And you can watch these people have a point of convergence when it comes to the feminism stuff, and then feminism becomes the easier thing to ride with over what the Trump camp became, and so on and so forth. And now I think he occupies his time doing something like called The Serfs, where they go on about redistribution and, well, we should accept everyone and so on and so forth, whatever they do. And if you're basically let's be honest, we all know of the banana video. If you're just some sort of dysgenic freak, then the best thing to really, put your hat in the ring for would be this sort of liberal anarchism or whatever, socialism, but on a non-state scale.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a very good point. And like, just to clarify a little bit, when I talk about his failure to evolve, it's not necessarily his failure to evolve ideologically, because he does seem to have changed into...
No, he's just making the same content. That's the problem. Like, he has like 1 million subscribers or something, and he's churning out these like Steve Turley-esque videos for an audience that doesn't really exist, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's just, he's had this evolution where he realized that like this kind of anti SJW stuff, it doesn't really work in terms of a consistent worldview. So I'll give him that. But his lack of evolution is really in like the quality of his content, in a sense. Like, he's failed to sort of step up, in a sense, and make better stuff that's more researched and actually more engaging, and where he actually has something to say. Because what he's doing now is just kind of, he's copying Vosh and ContraPoints, and he sort of realized that, okay, that's kind of model that you should do, but he can't match the intensity.
Wow people with the styles like ContraPoints, and he can't do it live like Vosh can. So then what are people there for, right?
Yeah, he can't do the debate bro stuff, and he can't do the style and the poetry stuff. So it's just kind of, he's just kind of like this fat slob, which has painted himself, and with the purple lights in the background and stuff. So it's kind of like he just hasn't been able to level up, in a sense, to maintain that kind of YouTube celebrity status that he had once.
Yeah. Let's move on. And then we have the Longhouse discuss how to grill under pressure, which Leo, I think he sold this episode to me as, I want to talk about sort of how to survive modern everyday politics, and I also want to talk about how to build a grill. And this is, some sort of metaphor. But I honestly think he just wanted to explain to people how to build a grill, which I enjoyed immensely. But I remember people in the comments being upset, talking about like, when is he going to start talking about politics? He's just talking about how to build a grill.
That's very Leo. Is he not on today? Is he not coming on?
I have invited both him and Burkhall. Burkhall said he might make it later, and
okay.
Leo, I haven't heard from him. He tends to work nights at times.
That was funny, that one.
Look, I enjoyed my time with it a lot. I just think some people felt snubbed. And speaking of Burkhall, we had the Longhouse meme review, which is the annual sort of collection of, I think it's mostly Burkhall, and let me just get this right. It's Burkhall and one more guy. Sorry about that. It's Burkhall and a guy named Consumer. I'm not gonna dox him any more than that. And a guy named Volkish Villain. They keep posting memes in the Element chat pretty much all year, and so I collect them all and we go through them, and it's a lot of fun. All right. Let me see here. Someone sent me a message.
So we're not just doing 1 year. I mean, I thought we were just going to do 2023, but I see like, okay, now we're starting with 2023.
No, this is 2023.
Yeah.
Meme review is the midpoint of 2023.
It's the midpoint, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I was confused a little bit. I thought this was like...
No.
This is we're reviewing 2023 here now.
Yeah, we've been quite effective this year, like. Yeah, it's a lot of episodes. I realized it earlier today when I started scrolling through our episodes, and I was like, wow, this goes really far. I don't even remember this next episode, Subculture Gatekeeping.
I remember this one as the grilling under pressure thing. I have no memories of it almost, but the subculture gatekeeping, you had an article about like the evolution, it's like this 4-stage evolution of subcultures, and then how that applies, and how you just kind of try to, do you go big or do you just try to maintain it as a kind of niche thing,
Yeah.
and how exactly how important gatekeeping is, and we did a lot of examples, talked about like Warhammer 40k or some
I remember that
Magic
now.
Magic the Gathering and stuff like that, and how they've kind of just been ruined by making them mass products. The only thing you get out of that is cash, basically. So,
right, but you lose any, artistry. And then we have two streams, which actually happen sort of organically, one after the other, because at this point on Twitter, Cows was posting a lot about sort of her experiences with going to Britain, etc., where she's genetically from, as well as Nordhuger expressing a lot of this stuff in his videos and in his posts about how Americans who are second or third generation are sort of having this weird problem where the overall American identity no longer fits them, and they actually feel more connected to their sort of country of origin, so to speak.
Identity crisis, basically.
Right. Yeah, a bit of an identity crisis, exactly. So we had them on to basically talk about that. I think this is were you part of? Yeah, you were apparently part of this. Like, I think it was one of them. I don't know. I remember you being sick at some point.
Yeah, no, that's in the Alexander Adams episode.
That's it. Yeah,
drop out of it, but I was in the Heritage one.
I felt she was LARPing a bit. I don't know. I just felt.
As a new worlder,
everything is a LARP until it's true, Nomad.
Well, as a fellow new worlder, I did feel she had a lot of valid points. Like I traveled to the UK last year. I was also in Sweden. I basically went to places where my family came from, and when I was in England, I was actually kind of shocked. Like I had a little bit of culture shock. As soon as I got off the plane, got my bag, got to the train station, my first impression is like this sportswear advertisement that's like featuring aggressive Negroes that look like they're gonna mug me. I just had
that. Sounds like modern Britain.
Yeah, that's all the advertisements in the UK, isn't it, Hitman? That's basically like.
Oh yeah, basically
90% plus.
I felt sad, and the first person I asked for directions, it was a French black guy. And then when I was on the train, there was this Afghan Sikh guy, of all people, and he was asking me if this train goes to Stockington, but he was actually saying Stoke-on-Trent, but I couldn't tell because his accent was so bad.
Yeah.
And then eventually I was like, oh yeah, you were going to Stoke-on-Trent. And he was very adamant asking that. It was really weird. But then I got to these small towns, and the small towns, it was like going back in time. Like you're going back to the Shire, like in Lord of the Rings. But then I had to go to Manchester later, and it was again just like random brown people loitering around everywhere.
Hotel review you sent me on Twitter.
Hotel review.
No,
yeah,
someone sent me.
Was
that you?
There was a hotel in Swindon that I stayed at.
Oh yeah. Can I read it?
Went and creeped on the Lotus Eaters guys, didn't you?
Yeah, I went and creeped on them. They wouldn't let me in, but I got a picture of Callum through the window.
They wouldn't let you in. Why wouldn't
no, they wouldn't. Cause I was a nobody at the time. I didn't.
Oh right.
I wasn't on any shows.
But you weren't there. You weren't there for
funny.
Lotus Eaters, right? You were there for something else. Yeah.
I was there to go to Stonehenge and stuff, and I was like, well, I know where they. I figured out where they were by like triangulating all the different media accounts. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go check it out and see if I'm right. And I was right. So.
That's not necessarily the best way to ask for a job, is it?
Yeah. Hey, I know where you live.
I use the power of autism to find out where you guys are. Yeah. Imagine if you could use this. Yeah. All right. So here's your review of a hotel in Swindon. It says small rooms. Bathroom reminds me of a low budget care home. Mattress is the worst I've ever slept on in any hotel in all my life. Towels have some stains, but are quote unquote clean at least. Blow dryer is kind of broken. Heating seemed to not work. No fan in the bathroom. No ice machine. No closet, but instead a weird tree thing. The pillows, are you talking about the, what's that called in English?
It's like a hanger or something, but it was like a weird green tree.
Okay. The pillows are okay, I guess. Restaurant is okay. Staff are decent. Edit. I can hear people having sex through the walls. Loud mechanical banging noises until quite late into the night. What is going on down the hall? 3 stars out of 5.
That was very generous, actually. It must have been cheap.
It was cheap. It was like $37 a night. I was like completely surprised.
I mean, something tells me you stayed in the Travel Lodge, so.
It was the Hotel Camomile or something. I don't know.
Oh,
I never heard of the brand.
Yeah. Avoid Travel Lodges.
It had like there's a Romanian chick running it looked like. I think she wanted a piece, but I'm a married man.
Right. And after that stream on Heritage, moving swiftly along, after that stream on Heritage, George Bagby messaged me and said, I want to present a counter argument to this because these guys are, northern, northerners, and he's a southerner, and the southerners have quite a different relationship to their identity. And so he came on to do that. And I think that was very interesting. I'm sad that it's not got as many views as the first one, because I think it's very good to get both points, or sort of both points of view.
That's the sad reality of streams. Whenever you do more than one part, the second part always has a massive drop off.
I think it's some algorithm thing, honestly. I think if you put like number 2 in it, it just, doesn't give it to people who haven't watched the first one, right?
Bagby's really awesome. He's a really awesome guy in real life. I met him over in Nashville.
Oh yeah,
and
cool.
It was really great chatting with him.
He's incredibly well learned on a lot of the history stuff as well, and a very good. I think he's a teacher or something, right? Because he's very good at delivering this as well. Yeah.
Was that the one? Was that the one where he called you Mr. Walrus Man?
Yes, that's where my Twitter sort of Twitter bio Mr. Walrus Man comes from.
Yeah, he's been on Jay Burden's show many times. He's good enough that he can just start talking. He can carry the episode all by himself. Like it's a treat to listen to him.
Yeah, he's great.
Oh, one other point about these heritage streams, because obviously you had Nord Huger on the first one.
Yes.
I've had him on my channel to discuss the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, and everybody should go and look at his channel, because he does some very good videos as well, especially on like Nordic and Scandinavian history. And he discusses it so much more, Russ. I don't know if I told you this, but when I first had a chat to him, I was taken aback to discover he was American. I thought he was actually Scandinavian.
Right. Yeah, you'd think, right? No, he's very knowledgeable about that stuff, and he's he's a self-appointed zoomer as well. He revels in his zoomerisms, but he's got he's sort of going into this with his heart first, so it's very nice to see.
I would be tempted to, or I would be interested in finding out whether it was mostly Northerners or Southerners that attended Shielding's Nashville now, actually, considering that Liquid gave his Exodus speech there, and I think they were naturally averse to moving to South America, which you wouldn't think, considering they have some sort of attachment to the idea that they settle frontiers. Whereas if you took a look at I think Matteo Pellegrino did the Paraguay speech, which was essentially the same thing. And I remember a couple of people tried to deride that idea, and they received more pushback than Pellegrino ever got. So it's an interesting contrast that you wouldn't expect, especially that way.
My impression of Shieldings was it was in Nashville of mostly Southerners. I think it was probably like 60%, like 60-40. Just if that helps.
And then we had Nomad back to talk about Nixon a couple of months ago, which I enjoyed as well. It's always nice. One. It's always nice. You said it's nice that we read your stuff before, but it's always nice to have a guest that just sort of dumps. Here's 5, 6, 7 pages of research.
Really. That is not an article that I just prepared for this.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's great for me as the host to have someone who just provides you with that much information.
Yeah,
beforehand.
I just went on a bender and I was just like typing, and I looked at the clock. It was like 4 a.m. and I just had so
Nixon
much.
lore done.
So we could do like part 2, 3.
It's like those. I really enjoy those. There are a couple of like videos on YouTube that are like either reviews or like discussing like Elder Scrolls lore for like eight straight hours. It's kind of like that, but Nixon.
Yeah. We went nuclear.
Nixon lore ASMR or something. You could probably sell that.
Yeah, I've got to dust those notes off. But yeah, it was a good one, and he's a very complex and nuanced kind of character. Actually, I also re-listened to that one as well, and there's a couple of things I wish I'd have done better with hindsight. Bits about Vietnam, and I don't think we really covered Watergate as well as we could. But it's such a difficult topic.
I mean, we kind of skirted it on purpose because that could probably be its own episode, right?
Its own stream.
Yeah. It was more about sort of trying to talk about or like explaining, his history and his character.
Yeah, I just remember that line you did before we played the clip of the Nixon tapes, and you're like, "This is a conversation I've had in real life," and yeah, obviously with Kissinger, and obviously he passed away.
I was thinking about that as well. He passed pretty recently, so it's something that could be revisited, I think, quite easily. You have articles on Praxarchy that's called the Nixon Shock as a sort of series, and I mean they're not directly tied to Richard Nixon. It's really more about like moving off the gold standard and so on. But
correct,
we just thought that Nixon was so interesting,
as
a character, so that would be a fun episode to do. And I enjoyed this episode. It was a fun episode, but there's just something of like that just irks me about this episode, that there was a guy who came in the last 5 minutes and started talking shit in the comments.
No, right.
And we were not able to ban this guy. Like it really just annoyed me because I didn't see his stuff like until like the very, very end. What the hell? Like you come in at the last like 5 minutes of a stream and it's just this guy doesn't know what inflation is. There's I don't know why. Like that guy's, it just still annoys me actually up until this point that happened. It's a weird little thing, but it stuck with me.
Here at the Longhouse, we pride ourselves on having some of the best commenters in the DR sphere. The quality of the chat is always top notch. So when once in a blue moon, when someone random comes in and start talking shit, it's very shocking to us. Peregrinus de Flandria for €5, speaking of our elite commenters, says, I've been reading some of Dissident No Man's essays, and they are super interesting. They explain the system more than schizo conspiracy theories.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Because you don't do a lot of satanic pedophile cult speculation in your articles, and you actually post references as well. So, I mean, it's quite a few steps above most of the stuff that's floating around in the right wing, unfortunately.
That's very kind of him. Glad he got a donation. So, yeah, but no, you guys have really helped me this year, I've got to say. Luddick almost doubly so, because, yeah, Praxarchy is just gone from strength to strength, really. So I think, yeah, definitely, it's been a good year all round, whether it's streaming or articles. And, I, for one, will say I've learned a tremendous amount. So, yeah, it's good, and we're starting to catch on. So it's good. Yeah.
Very nice. Then we had a couple of episodes where we sort of just catched up on some news. We were talking a bit earlier about how sort of we should try to focus a bit more on the Nordics in terms of communicating what's happening, and that was some of the things my sort of attempt the last half year to sort of steer us a bit back towards that has been some of these sort of news catch-up streams that we do from time to time. They're nice to sort of keep keep on the back burner to bring out if we don't have anything else to talk about, or if there's other projects that take a bit longer to research. So hopefully people have been enjoying those. And then I had a stream with Alexander Adams, and this was the one that you tapped out on, Ludwig, because you were sick. And I got an early review copy of his book, Blood, Soil, Paint. I would actually like to bring him back on to talk more about that, honestly, because I felt like I didn't get to talk about as many things as I think he wanted to talk about. I feel like I could have done a better job to talk about some of the things that are specifically more Nordic. I would love to have him back to talk about that. So maybe I'll be able to do that sometime in 2024.
I've actually read that book, Blood, Soil, Paint, and no, it's a great book he's written there, and it certainly helps inspire me to do look a little more into art and do some of the art streams on my channel, Aura. So.
Then we had they called it the most self-indulgent episode I think I've ever done, which is a discussion I had with Alexander Macros, who is a former founder of The Escapist, and now author of The Adventurer Conqueror King system and others. So we talked a bit about tabletop RPGs and his specific style of tabletop RPGs and how that separates it from sort of mainstream games. Again, very self-indulgent, but I enjoyed it, obviously.
No, it's very enjoyable, and it's always good to see alternatives to the mainstream, because as someone who's dabbled in some mainstream tabletop, I think D&D's kind of like just shoved its head up its arse, basically, at this point.
More and more. They've done a great job on making the game easier to understand, but in the process of that, they have removed a lot of the soul, right? And they removed a lot of the in the interest of removing sort of overhead or sort of weird what's the word? Idiosyncrasies. From the older games, they also lost a lot of the spirit, which luckily someone like Alexander Macros has picked up, not necessarily to re-implement, but to implement the spirit of that mechanically in his games. So playing the Adventurer Conqueror King system, you interact with the world in a much more, I'd say, Conan the Barbarian style than you do with the modern versions of Dungeons and Dragons, which is much more about sort of, I've always lamented sort of the theater kid takeover of tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the style that the modern game tends towards.
I mean, with the stupid amount of like stuff, like all these races and subclasses and whatnot they've put into like 5th edition D&D, it almost feels a little bit like you're playing some sort of Marvel superhero instead of like a fantasy character.
To be fair, that sort of happens to every edition of D&D. I remember years and years ago, I joined some friends to play Pathfinder for the first time, and Pathfinder has been going for so long that, everyone is like a weird race, right? And because everyone who plays Pathfinder is like a super, super hardcore, like mechanical gamer, they all choose like weird race and class combos to like eke out every single bit of power that they can, right? And if you decide that you just want to be a human fighter, you're basically just gimping yourself. And so you're like a regular dude in this world with like your friends are some bird person and some furry and all that weird stuff.
I suppose, but at least in Pathfinder, at least they're kind of doing it for mechanical purposes, whereas now in 5th edition, people just actually want to cosplay as like the fairy priest or whatever. So.
I'm a human paladin only.
Based. No, I think there's room for elves and dwarves as well. I think there's narratively sort of room for those aspects of humanity, to put it that way, in a fantasy game like that.
I mean, they've got origins in like folklore, especially
exactly, yeah.
folklore. So,
all right. Then we have the discussion of economic tendencies. Consequences, which is kind of one of those news catch-up episodes with a bit more research thrown into it. Basically, just talking about the effects of modern, and I put it in quotes here, free trade on the economy, especially these days, with things being a bit more tight. And we brought with us Leo Borealis because he had some examples and some knowledge on stuff happening in Sweden as well. Interesting episode, but I don't think there's anything special about it.
I thought that was really funny. I remember.
Okay.
I told you the story about the blueberry bagel when I was in Korea and I was listening to you, and Leo was just making me crack up. I don't know.
I honestly don't remember what was funny in that episode, but it's good. I'm glad we made you laugh. It all blends together when you're hosting these.
I just pick up on all the rogue streams. I'm just weird like that. But Leo is just a funny chap, to be honest. He just makes makes the insanity of modernity, just a bit more palatable.
Yeah, Leo is a fickle forest creature that I manage to coax out every now and then to grace our streams, really.
And your live stream from the Witten when you were going on about the Finns, just
this here, yeah. That was
members
the
only stream, wasn't it?
Oh, sorry. I made that members only. Sorry about that. Yeah. It's not showing up here because I'm not logged in. But yes, I think we then did the Ronald Reagan stream with you, Nomad, and then in between here is the Witten, in which we did a live stream from the event grounds, where we're joined by a couple of other people as well. Consequent Fry, I think, who was there. And we talked we just talked shit for like an hour.
Yeah, it was, your takes on British food were pretty funny, especially as you were ill for the next 3 months when you returned.
Yeah, that stuck for a long time. Yeah. The problem, well, I mean, I came away, sort of positively with a positive experience on British food. But I mean, still, we were all sort of lamenting the state of the water. That was the main one.
You just lost all the nutrition you need to keep your strong Nordic body, like healthy.
I remember you posting
the minerals and the ice water. Sorry, what?
Yeah, I remember you posting your fish and chips, and it looked nice, except they should have given you some proper bloody chips.
Yeah, I don't understand what the deal there is, because I got comments on that tweet as well where it's like, oh, but they didn't give you real chips. And what is it? Is it like a different
They
shape?
gave you French fries. British chips are like thick and like fatter. They gave you American French fries.
Agreed.
Oh yeah, I googled it now. I see. Yeah, you can get that as well. I don't know why they gave me, the thin ones. Really,
bloody disgrace.
They were okay. I didn't get any sort of. You get like vinegar, right? I didn't get that.
You need the malt vinegar. You need the malt vinegar.
Yeah.
The thing is, no, Mad, we think, the negrified advertising and all of the other shits is bad, but, the fact that, people serve French fries in England, that really is the true nadir of our
That was the last drop.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. We could do obviously, it blew up on kind of Twitter, didn't it? Slopgate.
Yeah, Slopgate.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it tied into all of that, right? So we sort of had the food stuff on our mind when we went to Witten, right? But I also got to taste. I mean, I got a lot of shit from, I think it was Maven for that, because we discussed the. It's called something pudding, but it's this weird fried
black pudding.
Sorry, what? No, it's this weird. No. It's this weird fried It's almost like a croissant. This is not
Yorkshire pudding.
Yes.
Oh,
Exactly.
Yorkshires. Yeah.
And again, I called it a croissant, and Maven got on my case for that because apparently that's...
Understandably.
Yeah.
I mean, it tasted exactly the same, and it looked exactly like the same type of dough. That's
Nordic
all I'm saying.
Nordic moment.
Nothing wrong with British food, honestly.
You don't know how much you're triggering me right now, Wallace.
triggering all the Brits. You
Nothing
fucking
like-
old.
You triggered me. My grandma was English and would make these, croissant.
Just give me some pork belly and I'll leave. I don't need the... bread is supposed to be, dense and thick, and you're supposed to have like one slice of it and then be full for like hours. That's the way.
Something tells me that probably didn't give you a very good quality Yorkshire then.
No, it was very good. Like I'm not deriding the food that I got. I'm just saying, to me, this was just like a weirdly shaped croissant, but it was very good.
Next time, pop a hole in the top, fill it full of gravy. That's like the best.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah,
Yes,
I'll do that.
Then it soaks all your other food. It's awesome.
Yeah, and then we had
also it's the right proportion.
Yeah. Then we had John Dion to discuss food, art, and tradition, and it's specifically actually to discuss, well, not specifically, but as a consequence, Slopgate was a big thing. So we discussed Slopgate. I wasn't entirely convinced. Like, I'm still, one foot in each camp on this thing, because I still think there are sort of value differences on food. I mentioned like a Seinfeld skit, and in my mind, that skit only works if there are tiers of food. But I haven't really sort of been able to, I don't know, it's kind of, it's not very important to me that I sort of solve that equation, but I haven't quite managed to do it yet.
Well, I remember this phase actually. It seems like the theme of the DR was the like Europe versus America, and it was like over food and some other really stupid.
Became an extension of EU versus US. Yes,
it did. I mean, on my Twitter timeline, I've been doing a lot of like anti-American posting the last weeks, but it's like for completely different reasons. I always thought that this food stuff was kind of stupid. To be honest, I just kind of sat that one out.
Yeah, that's fair. Opinions on Slopgate?
It's built into the soul, in my opinion. The soul of America, one is the other. The food is just a natural extension of themselves. That being, I'm memeing a little bit, but I think there probably is something there about this amalgamation of everything from everywhere in the world. It becomes indistinguishable, and it all just gets covered in spice. But then again, you can go in on English food, so maybe there's just a hierarchy there where everyone, one above looks down on the other.
Yeah, maybe.
I think each people should be proud of their own culinary tradition, and you shouldn't judge someone else's tradition and not expect some pushback. So,
yeah, well, I think what ultimately sort of became is the fallout here is that the slop, quote unquote, is the food of the anywheres, right? Not the somewheres.
True,
and the food sort of reflects that. It's literally the trash bin taco, right? Or is it nachos, right? Where it's not even like it's an insult to Mexicans, it's an insult to the US, right? It's an insult to the consumer as well, because it's literally, you're eating out of a trash can.
I was curious, like, how potatoes are used all over, like, different European countries all have different styles of potatoes they use. But they're from the New World. What's the deal with that?
Sorry, what did you say? The potatoes are from the New World.
Yeah, but they're very popular. Like, there's different kinds.
Because they're easy to grow, right?
Okay.
It's like tomatoes. Like, you get the best tomatoes in Europe you get from Italy, but tomatoes are not from Italy, right? We have the recipe, right? We can,
we have the recipe. Send them back.
Then we had a discussion of Norwegian politics, which was because the local elections had just finished, and it was a massive election victory for the center-right. In the thumbnail here, you have the leader for the center-right eating a cake, and also the meme I made of the Progress Party's leader in all her various summer dresses, because I had noticed during the debates that someone had been sort of, the PR department had explicitly put her in all of these trad dresses, to sort of gain some more votes. Peregrina says, center right bros stay winning. We have an episode of the Longhouse doom scrolling Twitter, which is, I think I was still kind of sick at this point. And Ludwig and I was like, nothing's happening this week. We're just gonna doom scroll. We're just gonna go through my bookmarks on Twitter and see what comes up. And I made one of those. Remember when UO used to do like the smorgasbord or the something of? We've done that a couple of times as well, of topics. So I did one of those and had Ludwig Pats basically pick his way through it. I remember it being funny, but I don't remember else from that.
Yeah, I remember that too. I don't, again, not too much from it. It wasn't that weighty, but funny. It makes good content usually.
Asks, which episode did you flash us in? Well, I think it's coming up. We'll find it. I think it's this one, UBI. I think. And then we had an episode on the anti-woke stuff, because there had been a lot of anti-woke things in the media in Norway. So we did sort of like a roundup on some of the characters and some of the stuff that has been going on. And then we followed that up with a look into a specific Facebook account that seemed to have sort of taken the establishment in Norway a bit by surprise, especially in the art world. I'm just powering through these here because they're not that interesting looking back on them. That's not to say they're not interesting episodes. I think they're good. We explored the current thing, which is a return of Dissident Nomad, talking about the situation that was currently developing in the Middle East, and but of course with a bit more of a historical angle on it. And then I think this is the one you were talking about, Nordan. Yeah, we talked about UBI and tech economics. Basically, this was born out of me just seeing a lot of UBI on my timeline and being mad that it's still a thing. And so we ended up talking a bit about that, and it was also the episode where I did a Twitter search on stream and learned that Twitter is actually a porn site. Which, speaking of, I've been complaining about this in chats as well this week, that Twitter is increasingly becoming, just showing you pornography. And I'm saying, I'm not really saying it to be prudish, but I'm just scrolling through Twitter and I'm getting ads for like hot girls near you, right? I go into comments to see the comments on a post, which is not a sexual post. And the first comment is literally a video of, someone having sex. And there's nowhere I can sort of turn on a filter or something, right? I just have to live with it. And now I can't really browse Twitter in public because it's just going to show me porn at random moments.
Yeah, I get a lot of OnlyFans ads.
Yeah, OnlyFans ads, stuff like that.
I'm getting stuff like that as well, like this sort of like meet local women near you stuff on Twitter, and not to mention snuff videos that just show up. I don't know if anyone else is getting that stuff, but it's just you're getting some cartoons or something, and the next post is like somebody's getting shot in the face, and it's not a film or anything. It's like actual people just taped it with their phones. It's kind of like people who are beating each other up, and then a gun comes in, and like it's real. It's like real videos of like live leak, kind of like grotesque stuff of people just getting killed. It's kind of unprompted. I didn't ask for it, but it just keeps showing up there. So
I don't like
you're
it.
You're getting Bitcoin scams, Carl?
Yeah.
What you guys are saying is wild compared to what I get. I just get the most mild stuff ever. I don't know why that is.
Maybe I just need to be better at sort of blocking these, because I use the I tag it as like I'm not interested in this, but that doesn't seem to work. So I probably just need to start blocking everything I see.
That's the only way.
Yeah. All right. And then we had Youth Crime, in which we had Theo Kerner come on first to talk about, to basically bring the power of German autism to bear and tell us about the objectively best. He wasn't comparing everyone, but he did a deep dive on sparkling water, which I really enjoyed, because a couple of episodes before I'd said something about how I liked Pellegrino or something. I thought that was the best sparkling water, and for weeks he would be in the chat saying that I bought a bunch of sparkling water. I'm gonna find I'm gonna do some stats on it, and then a week later he's like, yeah, I'm halfway done. I'm gonna. Then one day on Twitter he sends me a message saying, here's my presentation. Do you want to have a look? And I said, at this point, you're just going to have to come on the show. But that was fun. He was good. So I really enjoyed that.
Guys, I'm going to have to head off. Unfortunately, got a few things to do. So,
yeah.
Okay.
No
Merry
worries.
Christmas. Thanks for having me on, Morris. Take care, guys.
Merry Christmas, Nomad.
Merry Christmas.
See you next year.
Christmas.
All right.
God bless.
Bye-bye. Then we have... and also we discussed youth crime, as I put here in the in quotes, which were deep diving into sort of the idea that youth crime is becoming an increasingly becoming a problem in Oslo in Norway, and it's sort of reaching a bit of a boiling point, I suppose, well, depending on who you ask, apparently police has everything under control. Despite these 14-year-olds robbing people at knife point.
Yeah, speaking of youth crime, reminds me of we had the whole Mizzy story here about 6 months ago.
What was that?
I think it was discussed on UA, but Mizzy was like this shall we say, youth who was just causing all of this trouble. He stole an old woman's dog. He just walked into someone's home with shouting at people, being threatening and aggressive. And he was covered on UO, and he got pulled onto Piers Morgan, and the low Caesars talked about it as well. And he was just making a big nuisance of himself. But let's just say, due to his racial background, I think he probably got away with it a bit too much than other people would, if you know what I mean.
There was one group he didn't get away doing it to.
Right.
If you recall that.
Yes.
It's the next one. The next one video.
When we discussed the redacted. This was an episode where me and Ludwig, we're getting down to this happened a month ago, so it's very fresh. We discussed the current events and how they are being sort of brought up in Norwegian politics of all things, and sort of discussing how a certain section of society tend to do things a certain way again and again. And after that, I held Leo, Ludwig, and Green River hostage for an hour and a half as I talked about Star Wars. Well, an hour. We spent the first half hour talking about the fresh, hot off the presses Dutch elections in which Geert Wilders' party won overwhelmingly. But I mean, that was a fun sort of there's nothing going on other than the elections. I'm just going to talk about Star Wars, and I ended up spending way too much time preparing a slide show for that, and it was fun. It reminded me, it was sort of like I felt like it reminded me of the old style of Longhouse episodes where we would stream for 4 hours on some culture stuff, which we just don't have the capacity to do anymore, unfortunately.
Sometimes
yeah.
you just have to indulge your own autism.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then we followed it up with Longhouse Goes to Class, which sort of is also part of the trying to bring more Nordic stuff in, where we looked at some articles that I sort of gathered that all has to do with sort of the plight of teachers in Norway these days. They're having a rough time with the kids, and we need some more money for the programs, I think.
Oh, to be honest,
Was
I think
this,
it's tough.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I think it's tough being a teacher no matter where you are in the West. They're all having to deal with troublesome youth, so to speak. So,
and they
I was
don't
gonna
have
ask
any
that.
tools to deal with it, right?
Is that what you were implying? That's what you implied in that, right? Like it was, the diversity, basically.
Yeah. Well,
regardless of whether
Yeah.
it's diversity or not, like the stats that we showed in that video don't really care about the diversity, but of course it's usually inner city schools, so that might be part of it. But the point is that regardless of the ethnicity of the kid, the teacher also doesn't have any tools to deal with it, right? Because there were kids, I remember growing up, there were kids who acted mean to the teacher, but the teacher could reprimand them, right?
Yeah. They're just neutered.
The infamous shin kicker case.
Oh, yes. I don't know, but from my childhood, I remember teachers being pretty powerless, if I'm being frank. So it seems to have gotten worse.
I remember there was a substitute teacher. He choke slammed one of the students down because the kid was being a total asshole, or pardon my French. And then they totally choke slammed him, and he was crying, and it was awesome.
Nice.
I just remember thinking, I'm glad that's not me.
And I bet you never, acted up again in that class, right?
Yeah.
And then we get to the video I talked about where I discussed the philosophy of Dark Souls with Nathan Hood. I have said many times on the show that, my last video would be the Dark Souls video as a sort of Hail Mary to get viewers again. But Nathan was talking on Twitter about, he wanted to do something with Dark Souls. And I said, at least let me help. And then that evolved into, what we have going now, and it seems like there might be an episode 2 over on his channel where I'll be joining him sometime early January, so watch out for that.
Are there deep reactionary themes in Dark Souls?
What were you saying?
Out of curiosity, I'm not very familiar with Dark Souls.
Well, you should probably watch the stream and find out. Yeah.
Ooh.
But yes, both Nathan and I believe that. But it's a very interesting sort of dichotomy because it's sort of from the perspective of the Japanese. So you get this weird blend of strange sort of Buddhist Japanese culture that seems to match up with some, like they've taken the things that match from either side and then made a thing out of it. And it becomes very strange, but in a very interesting way. So there are some reactionary themes in it. There are, especially with us talking about cycles and sort of doing the right thing in that context.
Speaking of cycles, sounds like a bit of a cultural pseudomorphosis, to use a Spenglerian term. So
yes, that's a good word. Yes. And then the last stream before this one is the Longhouse owning the libs. Which was another like hodgepodge of articles. We wanted to literally own the libs. Now, I want to get you guys' actually, before we go on, because I got some pushback today. I made a confession. To, some of the Longhouse's closest compadres. I went to Burkarl and Green River and Luddick and Leo. And I showed them a picture of one. Before we go on, does anyone know on Twitter, there's a guy who goes by, let me bring him up first, just to get the the ball rolling here. All right, let me open Twitter on the screen. And here's Black Metal Enjoyer posting about Murdoch and Pepe. So that's nice. He's called something like Billy Pratt. There he is. This guy. He wrote a book called Welcome to Hell. I'm sure you've seen this guy around.
I think I have, yeah.
He has a tendency. I don't remember what her name is. He has a tendency like this woman is this guy's sort of like white whale, right? I don't remember her name. But I've seen her a lot. She's an American. Is she a politician or like a news anchor or something?
I don't know who she is, unfortunately.
Is that Taylor Lorenz?
I think Taylor Lorenz, yeah. And he sort of posts like, you know, fellas, would you, right? Of her and like other women that look like her. So I was making a confession to, you know, my closest compadres, and I got a lot of shit for this. Because I was making sort of like I have a bad Billy Pratt-esque fascination with one lib MP. Is it MP? And here's the picture I showed. And so to everyone in the chat here, I'm gonna need your verdict.
Wood?
In the comments.
Oh, would.
What is this, like a Norwegian politician?
Yes, for the liberals, the socially liberals, not the.
She wouldn't be liberal after I was done with her.
Oh, there it is.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think
Nordanon is very often, you know, on the wood side of things. And I managed to sort of broker a deal here with Leo Borealis by saying that I've never simped for Sanna Marin. Can I have this one? And he said, okay.
Well, at least she is one of your own people, so to speak. So.
Right.
I don't think women's opinions matter.
Well, that's a point too, I guess. Wood. Johnny the Great says wood. Tomahawk says wood. What do you men get out of talking about if you would or would not? Well, it's just, you know, it's bands. You wouldn't get it. I'm sorry.
Women.
Longhouse destroying the libs suddenly get a new meaning. The point of the Longhouse destroying the libs was basically to showcase her compatriots, which were other politicians in her party. To be fair, some of them were, you know, the youth section of the party. Who were saying the most ridiculous stuff. One guy wanted to ban Christmas because he wanted to work. He wanted to be a good pay piggy and didn't want a day off. And one woman was trying to argue for euthanasia. And I think we had one more thing. This was last week when Ludwig ranted about the X-Filesing of American politics. That's true. And here we are today. So that's a look back at our back catalog for this year. I think, you know, we did some things at the end of last year in terms of sort of restructuring the show and focusing on shorter, more informative stuff. And I think it's really worked out. I think it's, you know, showing in the numbers and everything like that. So I'm very happy with the things we've done in 2023 and hope that we can do it more in 2024.
So I dropped out a little bit. I don't know, are we rounding off now or
you didn't miss anything?
So yeah, I don't know. Are we planning to do one more episode? Is there even another? Yeah,
no, this is the last episode of the year.
Yeah, so it's kind of a nice rounding off. I mean, what have we learned? You know, that's kind of my question I ask myself.
Nothing at all.
What have we learned in 2023? Nothing.
Book summaries are hard.
Well, I've learned a lot personally in terms of my understanding of sort of, you know, what's going on. I've learned to appreciate the situation locally in Norway a lot more. and being able to see a potential future here. I've learned. I think I've become a lot better at doing the live streams, at being a host this year than I was last year. And we've had more guests and more high profile guests, which have forced me to be better. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys.
I mean,
I feel like
right?
I feel okay. Who?
Liquid.
Okay. Well, I this year it's been awesome. Like, thanks for you guys for bringing me on and having me on the show, because it kind of raised my profile a bit, and I was able to get some ideas out there. So thank you very much. Thanks for all the others too, like Habermas, for example. Carl, I talked to him quite a bit, and Dissident, he's not here right now, but it's been good having these conversations with people. And I was pretty black-pilled about Canada after coming out of COVID, being like locked in, not being able to leave like it was North Korea. So I'm like slightly less black-pilled than I was. I think it can be saved, but I don't know. But I'm grateful for all you guys, and it's been great. So thanks.
Yeah, that means a lot, actually. Thanks, and thanks to you, Liquid, for coming on. That's been cool to have you on the shows. I mean, like for myself, if 2020 was like my great kind of radicalization year, I think 2023 has been kind of my readjustment to sort of de-radicalization year. And I can't put my finger at why, but there's been a lot of experiences that I've gone through where it's sort of like it's pulled back a little bit on some of the more kind of fiery stuff that I was on to previously. And I don't know exactly if it's being a parent or something else, but there's just like, there's like certain aspects of the far right that I've fallen a little bit out of, which is a weird time for this to happen, because like I think the far right in general has made a lot of strides in terms of just public opinion this year. When you see the kind of people who's being elected, whether it's in Argentina or in Spain or in Italy or all over the world, or the elections and the stuff that's being happening, and the rhetoric that's coming through here, or with Twitter and Elon Musk and everything. There seems to have been like this kind of all this sort of pent up energy that's been pent up for so many years has just been released, and you can see how people actually feel about it. But it's made me sort of more aware of like there's just certain parts of it that I just feel kind of disconnected from, honestly, and I'm just sort of trying to figure out how to reconcile that with where I am currently.
May I ask what parts of it's not too spicy?
I think that should just be a stream on its own, really. to be honest, it's just a little bit too much.
2024 with that, just make an enemy of everyone. Yeah,
to make an enemy of everyone. But I mean, if you've been following my Twitter,
I think I don't think it's clued into it. Yeah, I don't think it's out of character, in that sense for you at all. I mean, as you said, if you follow your Twitter, you can basically, see the logical steps that you're taking, right? And some of the comments that I do get for the Longhouse is that, I really enjoy your show. You're very sort of level-headed about things. So I think that's part of the shift, right? Then we've tried to, let's approach this, not like the Americans do.
So true, King.
Yeah.
Well, Walrus.
Yep.
Well, you've said about what we've learned this year, and I actually want to put a question to you and the others here, and I might get a little bit of pushback for this, but I think this year something I've sort of learned or realised is that if we want to win, I think we need to sort of accept that there has to be a little bit of what I would call necessary transgression. What do I mean by that? Well, obviously, Academic Agent has talked about ideas like the Boomer Truth regime, and the Boomer Truth regime is almost, I feel, a fake position in our society, and there are some elements of that which have been held sacred. And what I mean by necessary transgression is there are some things that we just can't be allowed to be held over us, because it will stop us from moving forward. One example is recently in Britain a month or so ago, we had a Remembrance Sunday, the 11th of November, and around that time, you obviously had the whole discussed on you where you've got like the Palestine kind of counter protest going on, and a lot of people thought that was completely like anathema, that was going to be allowed to take place, and a lot of us are saying, well, no, it's not. I get that we think it's sacred, but don't go. It's not worth it. And Charlemagne put a really good tweet out saying that British people have a really weird fetishization for their World War veterans, to the point that you're going to do something stupid. And I said to Charlie, I agree with you. It's like, yes, I mean, my own grandfather was injured in the Second World War, and I get it, but it's, we can't sacrifice our whole society and everything just for that, because that is what's led to its current destruction.
Luddick and I tried to talk about this earlier on another stream, and I failed miserably, so I'll try to talk about it again. I'm of the opinion that the problem, if we're taking sort of the high level view of the problems we're facing, these problems are so big and so complicated, and any solution or reset or clearing out that would be necessary, or even replacement through outside barbarians, is so far off from us sitting here today that it's going to be a problem for our children or our children's children. But until they are ready to take over, someone's going to have to basically bargain with the regime to ensure our survival, right? Because if we all just sit here and say, well, we're just going to plan and wait, then by the time we're ready, there's not going to be anything to save. And that might be fine. But, I think we can do both at the same time. We can have someone whose job it is to basically, fight for quote unquote our people, and maybe take hits in the optics department on that. That's fine, as long as the sides don't touch, right?
And speaking of transgression, obviously we had the whole moment where that Robert E. Lee statue in America was torn down, and they televised it, and Charlemagne and Absolute Majesty did a stream the other week talking about Robert E. Lee, and again, if anything, it had the complete opposite effect. Everybody felt more galvanized as a result of it than disheartened. Right. And I think that's sort of the attitude we've got to have with any if any more statues come down, any more desecrations happen, as horrible as it is, we mustn't become downhearted. We have to allow our fiery resolve to burn within ourselves and carry on.
Yes. But, I mean, there are different types of people for the different types of jobs, I think.
I mean, I drew slightly different lessons coming out of this. If we're counting the 365 days, I mean, an early one I got, so I think the dissident right has sort of, and I think this is a good thing, it's crystallized to the point where we've got a broad idea of what we want and we're going to stick with it instead of having another intellectual evolution. And I think you can spot this maybe on people's perception of Millennial this year. It's a lot of basically the same thing said once more. And I think that's quite positive. I think that when we talk about, perhaps practical action and moving into that realm going on, maybe it doesn't make good stream content, but I look at...
No, it doesn't, but it's the way we should be moving anyway, right? I mean, ideally, we should all end up not having to do streams and rather have communities where we can, interact with these ideas in real life.
And another thing he talked about was about what's left to save. One of the other things I've done is I've just completely abandoned any populist pretension. I mean, we talk about these statues coming down, and on one level, that's quite good, because the more aggressive they get, the more people end up just necessarily gravitating over to us, our on the side of the bet, so to speak. And I think that if we look at projects like Aramia, we don't necessarily need everyone on board. In fact, perhaps there are questions about the populations of our countries.
What I'm trying to say is not really sort of what's left to save. I'm just saying if we're going into a transitionary period, who's and a lot of the West is now at the point where the native population. I'm trying to talk around this to make sure that we're not going to get demonetized. I mean, we're probably demonetized already, but taken off. The native population is rapidly approaching either 50-50 or a minority status. And my point is, as that population in a practical sense just becomes another brick in the wall in modern neoliberal politics, where everyone is just sort of identity politics, arguing for Gibbs, who's speaking for the native population. Because at some point you're either going to be bred out or run out of your own country. And if we're not ready by then no one's going to be there to speak for us. So there's got to some people's going to have to jump into the firing line and do things that are unoptical in order to basically, as I said, bargain with the regime to get something.
Oh, my mistake. I agree entirely.
I've been working with a little bit of the OGC groups in the States. I'm in Canada, obviously, so we can't use the OGC because it's a legal entity. But I've been working with groups trying to organize events throughout the States. Like we did one in New Jersey, DC, I think one in Oregon. I think there's another Oregon one coming up. There's going to be one in March coming up in LA that I'm working on. I might actually go to that one. But basically what I found is happening is like you have these sort of localized groups, like, in LA and stuff. There's small basket weaving groups. And what they don't have is a guy to go like, hey, do this. So then I start taking on that role. And so I've been working with Dave and this other guy named Merrick, and we've been trying to organize little groups. And the idea behind that is just to get these young guys, because I'm a little bit older and I've done some organizing, it's just to get them moving. And once they get moving, like the momentum takes off,
Yeah.
So find your role if you can.
Yeah. And, as I said, this ultimately becomes a long battle. It's just that, we got to make sure that there are people that can be ready once that's coming, right? The moments. There's been some discussions on Twitter. I saw Nathan Hood post whether or not we're in civilizational autumn or winter. And I definitely say that we haven't entered winter yet. I think that winter is going to be much worse than whatever we're experiencing now. And my point is, well, if that's not going to be me, I'm going to have to prepare, my children or, the next generation, so to speak, for that possibility. But, I have to also ensure that I'm going to be around to do that. And that's why I'm saying that we can't just think, a million, I'm saying a million facetiously, X amount of years ahead if we can't defend ourselves today. So there has to be, two sides of this. And what I'm basically doing here without saying it is, defending someone like Sargon, right? Like he's basically organizing a movement that is willing to bargain with the regime on behalf of the white people, whether or not he's realizing it. That's what I think is happening. And you can give him shit for that because it's bad optics, but at least it's a line of defense, right?
Yeah, no, I think Sargon is right. I mean, if we look at sort of, from 2002 or 2019 up until now, I'm chatting with Carl a little bit on the side here in terms of like these ideas that I've rejected, but there are certain things that we can just kind of now look back and say that this was just wrong wholesale. And if you look at like videos from 2020 and like this, all this sort of like whining about like Kaisarism or a lot of these sort of Moldbugian ideas that, well, this is, we're in this like, with this kind of pincer grip where this is sort of ratcheting of woke. And this is only going to go away if you get some kind of dictator to smash down on the whole thing at the same time. Like there has to be some kind of military dictatorship before the woke goes away or something like that. I mean, can we just agree that that was wrong? I mean, I think it just sounds like nobody's talking like that anymore. But I remember just that was like the dominating tone.
Well, the thing is, you can't have a Caesar. You can't have a Caesar until he's authored into existence, sort of thing. Like otherwise, it's just some guy being crazy. You have to like justify it with a narrative or some sort of story or a hero. Then he kind of, different quote Caesar figures kind of arise, and most of them fail, but you only need one. And I agree. I don't think we're anywhere near that, but like we haven't even created the story where that gets justified.
The thing is that, I mean, there have been people who have been doing things that have been able to, soften a lot of the kind of hard left stuff that's been going on. And it's not been military dictatorship Caesar. It's been incrementalist stuff, or maybe populist stuff, or maybe just kind of like whether it's like the Bud Light boycott or something like that. It's actually worked. And, maybe it's worked because we have some elite support. I grant that, but like Elon Musk is not the Caesar. This is just like we just have more capital on our side. And that did a lot. You don't really need to have like this complete, Caesar type figure to change things. At least that's sort of my view here, is that, a lot of that rhetoric now, like this sort of, a lot of mold bug in general, because I find it hard to criticize because maybe my IQ is too low or something, but there's just a lot of wordsmithing that just goes into certain ideas that when you try to simplify them, you just get like, ask like ChatGPT to just simplify these ideas or something. Like it's not really that clever, to be honest. That's just my opinion on it in general.
Intellectual masturbation.
Yeah, a lot of it, maybe you could call it that. I mean, you could say it's poetic, because I'm quite a fan. I like reading it, but it's just a lot of this wordsmithing and references and history stuff that's in there. It's kind of obscures the basic points that tend to just be wrong. So, like, that's kind of was one of the things I learned in 2023.
Burkarl, welcome on. Merry Christmas. How are you doing?
Hyvää joulua kaikille. Yes, I'm driving.
You're driving. All right. Very good.
Yes. This is Longhouse on the road.
Longhouse on the road. That's good. Sorry, I forgot to bring up, I didn't want to interrupt the discussion here, but Peregrinus of Flandria says, Luddick upload meme videos again for £2. That's been something that's also been a consistent feedback, is that Luddick's meme videos are always great. and his community page.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've just not taken the time to do it.
It's a lot of work.
It's just not a priority, even though it's like low effort stuff. It's just kind of not a thing that I sort of prioritize currently, and I don't have the spark, let's just say, to do this. And like most of the stuff that I make is so low effort anyway. I think like anybody could make these things, and I just repost them or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's my.
You need to put more effort into not using effort.
Yeah,
the less effort you use, the better the memes are. You used a lot of effort in gathering up all the pagan cringe, and that was horrible.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, actually.
You spent it all on the pagans of TikTok.
I actually found Luddick Pat's meme channel before I knew anything about the Longhouse or anything like Beowulf and stuff like that. And I recalled the name and looking at the memes and went, "Wow, this guy's stuff's pretty funny." And then it was an absolute shock to me to come across him in private chats afterwards that I made the connection that this guy was actually in this thing as well. So it was a bit of a funny way of meeting someone for the first time or encountering them. But yeah, I don't know, just something I've remembered.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird for me that people actually cared so much about these things. To me, it's kind of like, okay, I made some things that I thought was a little bit funny at the time, and then I kind of forgot about it. So, but yeah, it's interesting at least to see that people are into it.
It's still incredibly funny how much your community page brings in people who don't really understand what your political views are.
Yeah, but it's not easy to understand. It's actually quite complicated, so I don't blame them.
Maybe Luddick will upload a video on Christmas, someone said. Maybe. So Nordanon said, in regards to our previous discussion, he said, having a dictator is pretty cool, though. Yeah, well, having a king is pretty cool, but we spent a lot of time in the 20th century trying to force through, that kind of thing through weird collectivism, basically. And I'm kind of with Evola on a lot of the critiques there. It's it might seem cool, but it's not sustainable. I mean, maybe Franco would have been sustainable, but again, he was more of a king than a collectivist dictator, right? So
Yeah, and he handed power over to the king, who immediately, you know, went back on everything.
right. So then it kind of, you know, swings and roundabouts, right? All right. Anything else people want to say? We were talking, Burkal. We've done a retrospective on, you know, all of the videos we did this year, and we're talking about what we've learned, and we ended up talking a bit about. Well, Hitman had some questions for us about, you know, what action we should take going forward, the optics, etc. I'm putting words in your mouth, Hitman. Do you want to rephrase it for him?
I was just saying about the idea of sometimes it may be necessary to be transgressive despite your sort of feelings towards it, because, as I was saying, you know, Boomer Truth is almost a safe position in our society, and, you know, you can't allow these sort of mythical, sacred sort of symbols, which aren't really that old or traditional. They've just been made since 1945. Have a swing over you, and I was mainly referring to the sort of the veneration in Britain for the veterans of the world wars, like, you know, any kind of not, you know.
Hey, yeah. Speaking of those sacred symbols, I just came from. The reason why I'm driving is I just came from a basically workplace office party, and at the party there was a movie showing. And the movie was a recent thing. I think it was Killers of the Flower or something. It's a very recent movie directed by Scorsese.
Oh, I've heard
and,
of that, yeah.
Has anybody seen it?
I haven't, no.
I want to, actually, but you're free to spoil it.
I probably wouldn't, you know, see modern day movies at all. But, you know, they showed it at this party. And I got intrigued because in that movie, there was a lot of messaging. It's well, I'm not going to reveal the whole plot, but the idea is Indians are getting screwed, evil oil companies behind it, and the federal government comes to save the day, the FBI. But what was interesting about the oil companies portrayed by Scorsese was that basically they were coded in a Mason Jew way, and they were the big white evil. Yes, Masons. Jewish Masons. It wasn't like very implicit. Yes, Jewish Freemasons. And they were the big bad evil of the whole movie. The whole oil company cabal, you know, U.S. I mean, they are whitewashing completely the FBI and the federal government in that whole affair, because in reality, I mean, those two things aren't you know, complicit. You know, they're complicit in it. But, you know, basically just portraying,
who built the cages,
saying the federal government are the good guys for bringing down this cabal of Jewish Freemason oil corporations.
Based.
But when does this take place, though? Like, what year is this movie supposed to be taking place in?
The description says at the turn of the 20th century. Let me see if I can find something more.
Yeah, it's basically after World War I and before World War II. So between the wars.
You just called it Ellis Island.
Well, then it's a little bit different, right? Because the American government was not as J-ish, I think, in World War I as it was previously. As it was after. So the FBI has not always been as well. You could say it's always been shifty, but it's not been influenced by the same groups, I think.
Nordan on here with his trademarked based ? Interesting. So, Burkal, is there anything you would, as I said, we were talking about things we've learned this year. Have we learned anything this year, or have you learned anything this year in terms of what we've been doing here on the Longhouse?
Probably a lot of things. nothing really comes to mind. I'm trying not to slide off an icy road right now.
That's fine.
I'm off to. I'm probably gonna have to hop off. I'm probably gonna hop off the stream right now. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'll write my great memories of the year in the Longhouse Matrix chat. So everybody should go join that.
Yes, that's very good. And you get into the meme channel as well, which means you get to have a sneak peek of meme review, which is only 6 months away at this point. Liquid Swan, what are you typing in the private chat?
Oh, I was in the. I'm kind of like at work, so I'm like walking around in the bathroom, and I just realized like there's a tampon and pad dispenser. It's a men's bathroom.
In the men's bathroom,
right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Welcome to Canada.
I will say that was a pretty funny video you posted earlier there, though.
Oh, the
Society.
Oh, the
yes,
the Society. Oh yeah, Society of Magical Negroes.
Indeed.
That's the title of the movie.
Mm.
Is that a movie?
Yeah, it's coming out in February.
What is the? Hang on.
The plot is that white people are the most dangerous animal, and these magical people are magical.
Like Harry Potter magical.
Yeah, to keep white people from killing everybody.
Based.
Actually, yeah, kind of unironically based, I guess. But...
I mean, even with that movie, like Aaron McIntyre put out this video yesterday where he had Academic Agent on talking about like woke and non-woke and stuff. But I mean, I tend to sort of side with Academic Agent because I have like a different definition of what woke is than Aaron McIntyre has. Like, you know, seems like I'm derating a little bit, but like the idea is say that you take Trump off the ballot is not really a woke idea in the sense like I don't consider that.
No, I don't consider that woke either.
You know, that doesn't mean like it's more woke. That's something that, you know, you like neocons could have taken him off the ballot. You know, that's not necessarily within the same thing. It's woke is like this sort of diversity, equity, inclusion, you know, HR stuff, like this kind of pro-black, anti-white type of thing. But when I was looking at the trailer for this sort of like the Society of Magical Negroes, it seemed almost like the kind of you know, Boondocks episode. I don't think Boondocks is woke. I mean, you see what I mean? It's sort of a little bit too kind of on the nose.
Is this supposed to be like a spin on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen or something like that? Because it sounds very strange to say, you know, they couldn't come up with a better name than Society of Magical Negroes.
Well, I mean,
it's a trope in American sort of films going back to the 50s where you would have a quote-unquote magical Negro come in and fix everything for a troubled white person in a sort of situation.
So it's a play on that. Okay.
Yes.
But, I mean, the fact that they even use that in the title, right? I mean, that's not a woke thing. That doesn't comply with the sort of like, we have to protect this kind of Puritan, we need to protect black people from, you know, this kind of systemic verbal harm in a sense. Like,
it's a hierarchy thing.
Well, if you've seen the like Boondocks, have you seen the Boondocks, that cartoon show?
I think I've heard of it. I've seen an episode or two, I think.
I mean, they do these type of jokes, but it's very politically incorrect, where it's like, you know, the difference between white and black people, and it's like...
wait a minute, I'm white.
Yeah, I'm white. That's where that joke is from, like some kind of guy who bumps into a black person. It's like, you know, if there's two black people, they just shoot each other, and like if it's a white guy, he just walks on by because he's happy with his life and stuff. But it's it's like that type of commentary around that, but it's not really woke. It's very politically incorrect, even though it's like you could look at it superficially and say that this is like anti-white messaging on some level, but it's done in such a way that it's a kind of it really arcs back to more of like this kind of 2000s, early 2000s, like 90s type comedy from like a black perspective, which is almost a little bit beyond the pale of what I consider like this woke diversity, equity, inclusion, BIPOC type, you know, HR rules stuff. You know, I'd say like, you know, the Black Panther qualifies for that. You know, a lot of other movies qualify for that, but I mean, like this one, it just doesn't seem to be of that mold in a sense. But people have different definitions of what woke is, so there's no like one set way to look at it, and that's why it's confusing, I think.
I think the only thing that makes it woke is like that it's like a hierarchy, so you can't say like it kind of makes like if you're a polite company, you don't really want to say the title of the film. I can see people being reticent to saying it, but other people won't. So it sort of creates like this hierarchy where like, yeah, look, you won't even say the title. I can see that happening.
Just thinking how that would be translated into like Norwegian, for example. Because if you just translate it, you're going to be in deep shit if you say the title. Yeah, because we don't really have the word Negro. We don't use that. Like the translation there is the N word for us. So it's interesting. I can't wait to see
say like magical Africans.
Yeah, maybe. Magical African Americans.
I mean, there's like this movie that came out in the 90s. It's called Gay Ends from Outer Space or something. It's not a
right.
It's not a woke movie, right? I mean, it's so
it's misogynistic.
Yeah.
I mean, on what's woke, what's not woke, and we're going, specifically on the subject of its effect on whiteness or its attack on whiteness. I always conceptualize it as you have woke and anti-woke. One of them is very overt, and the other is sort of implied and systemic in its effect. One's a knife, the other or a gun, and the other's poison. But I don't know if that's. I think that's a functional working definition. American Society for Magical Negroes. I mean, haha, we can make fun of the name, and you go, oh, you won't say it, or you will say it, and then it's funny. But ultimately, we're still in Fresh Prince. We're still in hell. And one of them's just a bit more comfortable and tolerable. So I would see anti-woke as the worst thing. But that was a bit of a tangent.
Yeah, anti-woke is kind of like Fresh Prince thing. I mean, I dislike, like you said, I dislike anti-woke as much as I dislike woke at this point, because like anti-woke, it goes too much into this kind of normie-con frame, right? And it's like they say, the woke are right sometimes, but the center right is never correct on anything. Normicons are just wrong on like every single topic all the time, every time, and I hate them to be honest. So there's
James,
that.
I think normicons wear banana peels as like shoes in a political sense.
Yeah, it's like you said, Hitman. It's James Lindsay types. These kind of like you have this guy who's like a math PhD, and he just manages to have the most dumb political opinions. It's just wrong on just every single topic ever, to the point where it's like it's not even possible to understand. It's just a worldview that's just created to mislead people by just deliberately obscuring the truth. I mean, I understand kind of like the, sometimes I look at that kind of stuff and I feel like I am a progressive. I feel like I am like this kind of prudish white liberal person who's watching that stuff and just saying like this is misinformation, because it is misinformation. Like it's just like Ben Shapiro, this kind of stuff, Tucker Carlson to some degree, most of Fox News, this kind of stuff. Like it is just bullshit. It's just constant BS on every level of the discussion, and I don't know why it persists, to be honest.
It's manufacturing an opposition that's built and designed for the purpose of losing. So I would say it's sort of a natural thing for it to be like that.
It's very tempting for us to kind of just look at that and just imagine this kind of hidden hand that's just engineering this stuff to be a losing thing. But some part of me also thinks that it's kind of like it's just tapping into its sentiment that people want to believe, in a sense. Like this is just a certain group. There's just like a large enough amount of people who just want this to be true, and they just respond. They're just kind of creating it almost out of this kind of this the market just is there for that to some degree. I don't know if this is correct, but
well, yeah. I mean, is it not just the established order of 5 minutes ago versus this vanguard that pushes ever forward, and there, you can default to the thing that you knew and were comfortable with, whilst society moves ever in one direction? Would that not be? It's sort of. I mean, we can admit, it's not really a hidden hand to say, well, you've got the IMF, you've got what once was ESGs and these corporations. That's not really hidden. They're kind of outspoken about it. The ADL's outspoken about what it wants. And you can trace
the ADL and ESG, they're not creating Fox News, right? it's something else that's kind of creating this sort of anti-woke stuff.
Well, if you want to go into what's the book Age of Entitlement I read about a month ago, and it will track for you how these sort of aggressive actors in the 60s and so forth would go and write this stuff into law, and then you can see how it would take that. And Fox News essentially fulfills it takes the only form it can, really.
Yeah, okay, in that sense, I would agree that it's manufactured because it has to exist within the same frame that all of these other woke things. Like, so the anti-woke has to exist within the woke frame, in a sense. In that way, I agree. I just think it's sort of baffling that it has this kind of survivability that it has, in spite of just being wrong on every single topic. There's just not a grain of truth in a lot of it, you know.
I have, well, we've been streaming for 2.5 hours. We should probably end soon, but I have some slop for us, if you all would like, before we end the stream.
Set it up.
I've come across there's a website called Ranker. Is it a website? Yes, it's a website called Ranker, which I guess, you know, ranks things, polls, etc. And they have created, as of the 1st of December 2023, the best binge-worthy TV shows of all time. I'm not sure if any of you guys are into TV shows.
I watch some every now and again, but I don't really like the idea of binging because, you know, it just seems very very trite and modern. So,
understandably, now binge-worthy. For those who don't understand, I had to go digging a bit to make sure I got this right. It's basically marathon watching a show. And at the top of the list is Game of Thrones, which I could understand. It's got some good hooks in the first season. To be fair, if you watched it when it came out, it was literally impossible to binge watch Game of Thrones because it was like one episode a week, which is what I remember doing. Me and a couple of friends, you know, used to get together and watch Game of Thrones. Well, every other week. So technically, we would watch 2 episodes at a time. And,
here's my take on like Game of Thrones as the first pick. I don't think it's binge worthy simply because it's the episodes are too long.
They are,
and there's just way too much going on in the show.
And,
like it's sort of like you have
at
to
rank 17, you have Band of Brothers as well, which is like I would not binge watch Band of Brothers. You know, you can watch 1 episode and then you have to go away and do something else, and then you can come back, right?
You
but
have
imagine
to be some weird person if you're going to binge watch like that kind of a show, right? But so I don't understand.
I understand people. I can understand people binge watching The Office. I can understand people binge watching The Friends.
Oh my
binge
God.
watching Big Bang Theory sounds like
Yeah,
literal torture.
I was going to say. Oh my God.
The Office and Friends is kind of like, I can understand that some people can sort of turn their brain off and just sort of have it on. But the Big Bang Theory, I don't know. Sopranos, I don't know. Binge watching Sopranos, like I'm sort of trying, like, did people not understand the question? Is this just like show I like? Do you want to come over and watch The Sopranos for like 5 hours with me? Right?
You know what? I think hell would be like strapped to a chair with your eyes forced open to watch. You had to watch the Big Bang Theory, and also your only sustenance is those stringy things from Bananas. That's like that combination.
The things you can like you like peel them off.
You're like Clockwork Orange style indoctrinated into Big Bang.
Clockwork Orange. I was gonna say it. Yeah.
and then taking big scoops of that, not even enough water to like wash it down, just like those stringy bananas.
I don't know why Sons of Anarchy and Peaky Blinders are being highlighted here, but
I've never understood the enthusiasm for Peaky Blinders. It just seems to be a bunch of criminals in Birmingham. So I don't understand what
I haven't
like.
seen it, so I don't know. Well, isn't Sons of Anarchy just a bunch of criminals in somewhere in the South? So I mean, it's adventure, criminals, danger. I get it, without having seen any of the shows. Let's see here. I have let's see, Orange is the New Black, Walking Dead, How American Horror Story, The Wire. I don't know. I don't understand. Like binging The Wire. I again binging The Sopranos. It's like I can't wait to just sit down. Well, I guess maybe some people do that. Like I can't wait to just sit down and watch like all of the Godfather movies in one sitting. Like that sounds incredibly boring. Well, not boring, but sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Exhausting is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, it takes a lot out of you. You know, it demands things emotionally from you, or
right, and
it
like
takes
binge
patience
watching
and
it doesn't make any sense, right? I'm not
No,
saying
I
that
mean-
Sopranos is like the height of drama, but it's certainly better than
Well, I
fucking
think
The
yeah,
Office.
maybe in terms of like TV drama, it's probably the height. At least at the time when it came out, it was considered like the best show that's ever made.
Well,
on
that's
TV.
what I'm saying.
So,
Compared
yeah.
to like The Big Bang Theory and The Office and Friends, I mean, you can't really binge Sopranos.
Have you seen The Big Bang Theory when they take away the laugh track?
No.
Yeah, it's painful.
I might have some
on.
insight on how people can binge things like The Sopranos, which is eventually, if you just watch something enough times, the plot points just fade away and it gets reduced to a general atmosphere.
But why would you rewatch things you've already watched?
Well, I think you know,
unless
not
it's a
much good
movie,
modern
like a
media.
show. I mean, I don't understand the TV show rewatching stuff.
The only one I could
understand
really see is like
a good
Breaking
movie.
Bad. Yeah.
Well, maybe Breaking Bad.
But yeah,
I probably wouldn't rewatch Breaking Bad.
Yeah, it's pretty
If
heavy.
if it's very like plot heavy stuff, then you might want to watch because you're afraid you didn't catch all of it the first time or something. It's like say with Game
fair
of Thrones or something. I feel like okay, and the first time I watched it, I didn't understand who these people were and like how this connects to what's happening in the later episodes and stuff. So that's why I probably want to rewatch it because there's there's like details that you probably don't notice until you watch it a second or third time.
Yeah, right, fair. Yeah.
The only TV show I've ever rewatched in whole was HBO's Rome, and that's pretty good. And also, that show's only like 2 seasons, so it doesn't take that long to get through it. It's not like these other ones which are like 6, 7, 8, 9 seasons. So,
yeah, I mean, I do remember, when I was studying, living in, what's it called, like dorm equivalent stuff with, 8 other people. There's always this thing where, there's a TV somewhere in the apartment, which is always on, right? Because someone's eating lunch and watching something. And there's, the thing is that in the background, when you're living in this place, the TV is always on and it's always like showing reruns of Friends, right? So I've watched a lot of Friends by osmosis without ever having watched a single episode of Friends from start to finish. Just from like catching a glimpse of like a scene of Friends walking by when you're on your way to something. Or if you're like talking with some of the other guys for 5 minutes and the TV is on, so you sort of overhear a scene from Friends, right? And for a long time, no, I'm trying to think, what other shows did I get like that? I guess Big Bang Theory was one of those as well.
and for me, it was Frasier because my mother is obsessed with that show, and when I used to live at home, she used to have it on all the time. So, yeah, I know so much of Frasier without even really sitting down to watch it properly.
Seinfeld's alright.
Seinfeld's good. Seinfeld's one of the shows that I,
Why is Seinfeld not on this list? Like,
yeah,
I mean,
why?
what's wrong
That's
with
what I'm thinking. Like, I don't understand what this list is because I can understand binging Seinfeld.
The showrunners probably bribed them and paid them to put their shows on. It's probably something like that. Yeah.
All right. I think it's starting to get late here. And we've been going for far too long compared to our normal runtime. But I mean, this is the Christmas special after all. Anything you guys want to say before we leave? We'll, go around the table. Ludwig Path.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. That's it.
Hitman.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. if you're interested, you can follow me on Twitter and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will having a bit of a break at the moment over Christmas, but I will be starting some new content in the new year.
And Liquid Swan?
If I've been trying to, if you're interested, if you're in the States or Canada,
you're breaking
especially,
up a bit.
running. Oh, sorry. How about now? Am I good?
You're back.
Or
yes.
am I still
Try
breaking
again.
up? Okay, we're so back. If anybody in the States or Canada, especially, needs help like organizing events or just knowing how to like start an event or needs some tips or just like some a morale boost, like message me on Twitter at Liquid Swan. My DMs are open, so I want to help people out if they can get these things going. And I can't really do much. I can't show up most of the time because it's expensive to fly out, but I can help where I can, and I can maybe get the word out and stuff. So if you need anything, it's free. I don't charge anything. I just want to help out. So if you need anything, let me know.
Very good. And Carl?
I'll just end off by saying Merry Christmas. It's been an honor to have taken part in some of the Longhouse streams this year. And I will say I know nothing of Seinfeld, apart from that Kramer's comedy career was cut far too short. And I will end it there.
That's probably correct. Now, for me, I'm trying to do this while I'm looking up a video, so you'll have to excuse me. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and I hope you have a good and happy Christmas, or Merry Christmas, that you get to spend some time with your family. We'll be gone from today until probably, I guess that's the 4th of January, would make sense. We might take an extra week off. But I'll also, as I said, appear sometime early January on Nathan CJ Hood's channel to talk more Dark Souls. And until then, I'm going to play for you a video here that I stole, or I'm going to play it from Vingle's channel of a mouth heart. Maybe this will be our new outro. I'll just find this video and we'll play this as the outro in 2024.
Slagte nog en gammal slagte. Och den har inte halvlinjen.